Hello, folks. Guess what? It's 8 o'clock on a Thursday night. 8 o'clock Eastern. It's probably some different time where you are. Shh. Did you know that the world has different time zones? I do. So anyways, welcome to Thursday Night Gab and Doodle. We're going to have a special guest coming on here in just a matter of a few minutes. I need to make sure, of course, my standard setup is going. I always have to lean in. Oh, get nice and close to the screen. Oh, and then now I get to go and put in the Ask Us Anything. Whoa, my camera is moving around like crazy. I forgot how to spell anything. Let's see. Ask Us Anything. I'll post that. And then when that's done, let me pin comment. There we go. So tonight we have a special guest that I believe is coming from Colorado, if I remember correctly. We'll find out. They're going to be joining us here in just a few minutes. It is the, of course, every time I hold these up, they're backwards. But Brizida Magro here. And I have all sorts of questions sort of for them, just based on sort of some of the aesthetic in the books. There's amazing sort of collage and textures and all sorts of stuff that comes out of this that I'm always sort of impressed with and want to find out sort of a lot about process and whatnot. But you can see such sort of cute images, etc. And so this one's Saturday at the food pantry. They did a bunch of, I think, 2 wheels, if I remember correctly. All the names sort of everybody's books that I've had on here eventually blend together into some sort of menagerie of titles. But we're going to be joined here in just a few minutes. So bear with me. I'm going to invite our guest in and see if they are here. So, oh, look at that. Sweet Beyond on Instagram. So we'll see if they are up and running. Oh.
Hi, Mark.
How are you?
I am good. I was very terrified that I was going to somehow mess up the how to join or all the stuff.
It's actually super easy, but I heard so many people being like, "Oh no, this is complicated." As far as I know, because I think I've been invited into one so far, but if I remember correctly, it's just you like click OK, and you're pretty much in. But either way, you are here. You're coming from. Are you tuning in from Colorado? Is that right?
Yes.
Where in Colorado? Without giving away your actual address.
My actual address. It's in Boulder.
Boulder. Okay. I guess the sun's already gone down there. I was thinking that you guys would still have sun at this point.
Let's see. I can move this back. That's cool.
You also have a Sub Pop poster in the background.
I do.
Are you
with a pig and piglets? It's my husband's. That's his side of the office.
Okay. I was gonna say Sub Pop. There's lots of bands I listened to that were on Sub Pop. I don't know if they still are, but so thank you for joining me tonight. We're fans of yours in this household. Specifically, the Saturday at the food pantry was what got us hooked. That was the first book that we sort of came across of yours, and then we've fallen in love with your work accordingly. And I have all sorts of questions for you, especially sort of since you are someone else who does some like cut paper things and some collage and all the fun stuff that I like to play in now. I have questions about sort of process, partially maybe to make my life easier, things that you can tell me, tricks of the trade. But why don't you give, for those that don't know you, why don't you give a quick synopsis of who you are and what you do?
So yeah, I am Brizida, and it's a very tricky, complicated name. But lately, after being in the United States for a couple decades, I decided to go by B as in beer. When people ask me, they're like, "What's your name?" I'm like, B, They're like, V? No, B is in
B.
beer.
Is it just because people mispronounce?
Yeah.
But
And or they'll just, it's hard to
okay,
remember.
okay.
And
Because in some instances, like on the books, it's with a Z, but then your Instagram was with a G.
I have a bit of an identity crisis. You can blame the record keeping. So I'm originally from Portugal, and then my name's been spelled numerous ways there too. Then one part of my family called me with the G, then it's complicated. We won't get too much into that.
Are you
But
are you the right person I need to be talking to tonight? That's the or is there some other Brizida?
there might be another one out there. My grandma was also I was named after my grandma.
Okay.
But yeah, and I have been illustrating children's books since just about the pandemic, so not that long ago. When the world was sinking, my career was rising, which is kind of exciting.
But you started in, if I remember correctly, the first book came out in 21, so that was probably what, 20 that you started?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little bit before that, maybe 19.
Yeah,
Right at the start of a lovely era for picture books. Do you think that in turn sort of like do you think that in some way sort of helped? And this sounds maybe awful, but just the idea of like starting out when it was relatively like it was, there wasn't a lot of stuff being bought. It was a lot of uphill from there as far as like production, whereas like people who may have been gotten in like a year before, all of a sudden stuff tanked. There, you know, like, did your perception of that sort of leap into it change because of that time frame?
I don't know. I think it was just my timing. Like it's just how it happens. But I was very happy that the pandemic didn't affect me in that sort of way. Maybe socially, it definitely affected all of us,
Yeah.
but not in terms of being prolific. And
I
so
mean,
that was kind of cool.
you've had multiple books during the pandemic that came out,
Yeah.
and clearly they've all done well, and you've maintained the like stamina through that, which is impressive. Just because I know that there's a lot of people that sort of question during that time, like, is there another book around the corner? Is it? I mean, even myself, I hit a point where like there was a slowdown for a few months, and I questioned things, and I was worried. So kudos to you for weathering the storm. And now you have what, like 4 books coming out in the next 2 years or something?
Yeah, yeah, something like that. The pub dates on some of them have changed, so I don't remember when they all come out. They're coming.
I've gotten to the point where my books come out and like my wife has to tell me like, oh, I'm you know, this is the date that it actually is, and there's too much information that streams through my head. One side, you know, goes in one side and out the other. I remember seeing there were a couple in 24 and a couple in 25, and I imagine there may be some past that at this point that you're working on now.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about sort of did you jumping into the sort of the art world, were you illustrating previously in some other format, or was it primarily kids books that was the start of it all?
No, I was doing some sort of illustration, some sort of art for like a really long time.
Yeah.
Like I got my bachelor's in illustration here in the US like many moons ago. And then I could say it, I guess. It'll just make me sound really old, but that's okay. So I'm a late bloomer. So if that's helpful for people who want to start a career in children's books, it's probably not too late unless you can't move your fingers anymore, then maybe it's a problem. But yeah, I studied illustration in the 90s. And then I was always a little fearful of just freelancing and kind of had a passion for, I wish I could have double majored in graphic design.
Okay.
And so I ended up going back to school for graphic design for several reasons
Oh yeah, that's
to get
right.
my master's.
Yep.
I wanted to teach, and then I studied illustration for my BFA, and I was like, well, I'll do design for my master's. I also wanted to stay in the US, and that's like a way to sort of gain time. It's just like,
Yeah.
I'll just go back to school because I'm originally from Portugal. So I was like, okay, I want to stay here. I'll go back to school and see how it pans out. And yeah, and then I was always, I got a job working in advertising agencies, and I did that for a long time. I feel like a lot of times they hired me because of my illustration skills. They're like, oh, we love your illustration stuff. And so I was always sort of doing some kind of illustration, even with the design, with the advertising agencies, like with either packaging design or whatever. Like there was always a way to somehow get it in there, aside from just doing like branding or this or that.
Yeah. And did you, when you went back for the master's program, did you stay purely graphic design at the time, or was there, like, I went back for visual design and I was like, I'm going to go back, I'm going to be a graphic designer and I'm going to deal with type all day long. And by the end of the program, after 2 years, I was like illustrating, essentially. I was still making paintings and drawings and things of the sort. And it was just inherently like in me to want to do that. Did you have the same
Yeah. Yeah, I was
sort of?
actually curious because I wondered if we'd had similar paths. I know that you're also an educator like me, and I was like, how does he juggle it? But yeah, I did. It was sort of like this because the design program that I went to was very open-ended,
Yeah.
and you got to do your thesis. And my thesis was on was a full on. There was type in there, but it was like, more like storytelling. There was definitely illustrations, and it was about idioms. Just I thought it was really funny that idioms, they're only relevant to a specific culture.
Yep.
Like he kicked the bucket, like if you told that to someone in Portugal, they'd be like, what? And so I thought it would make a very interesting thesis project. But yeah, I was doing a lot of illustration and printmaking in grad school.
Yeah, it sounds like it's almost pretty spot on, because I was doing the same thing. I was like, my subject matter at one point in my thesis was light bulb jokes. Like how many I printed out at one point all the light bulb jokes that I could, and it was hundreds of pages of light bulb jokes. And it was kind of silly things that maybe were not as serious as some of the other thesis projects that were out there.
Yeah.
It changed over time, but and then sort of the same thing. It sort of gravitated, and I was doing printmaking as well during it, and it's funny that there's a connection there. So I know that you have about 2 hours to join with us, so I want to make sure that we get to the actual like art making here in a second. But there are 2 questions ahead of time that we need to sort of figure out, which is, and you and I conversed about this a little bit about what we're going to make, but I want to start with what materials are we using tonight?
I am actually, lately I've been working for the books in a mixture of like traditional and digital, but I am going to be making working with a little bit of gouache, a little bit of everything, a little gouache, a little crayon, a little paper collage.
Okay. So wait, out of curiosity, so I have Saturday at the food pantry here, and I was noticing like there's patterns, like let's say the yellow outfit here. Some of these are like cut paper. Is that right?
Yeah, well,
The like pre-patterned, or did you come back in and actually add patterns back on top of some of these?
I added the patterns. I scanned in a lot of the textures. So
Okay.
I think for the Saturday at the food pantry, some of them were from like, the envelopes you get with bills, or like from the bank statements. It
Yeah,
has those patterns on the inside, or when you get a bill.
the security patterns. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay,
Yes.
that
I
makes
scanned
sense
a lot
now.
of those.
That makes sense looking at them. Some of the like really minute patterns that are in there that probably are too difficult to do by hand. Like, totally makes sense. I get it now. I see it now. I'm like looking through it. I'm like, oh, that's what it is. It's all bank statements that you used. Okay, so the other question, and I already know the answer, but for those that are tuning in, my wife said, and this is because she documents this for people too, what brands of gouache, crayons, paper, all that kind of stuff too, if you don't mind sharing.
I have all sorts, but mostly I have the Miss is it M Graham
Okay.
and Co. But lately I'm really liking the Holbein, because they come in these plastic tubes. I feel like the ones in the metal tubes, I've had them dry
Yeah.
out. like through the core where I was like, well, it's going in the garbage. But I'm like, I think moving forward, I'm only gonna buy these because I like they come in these little, they stay fresher longer.
Well, the
And
Instagram ones are gouache, and the other ones are acrylic gouache.
yeah, and then I've
I
got
don't know if that makes
just
it.
some the Caran d'Ache. I think they're like
Yep.
watercolor.
Yep.
And I also have some uh Great Paws. I don't even know what this brand is. The art supply store near my house. You can just buy like uh you know what how do you,
Individual.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Individual crayons. And so I would just go there and just buy like whatever color I liked
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than a set.
That's sort of the same thing for me. Like there's certain stores where I go in and people say like, what brushes do you buy? And it's like, I don't know. It's just sort of whatever looks right. I don't care about the brand on those. The paints I'll care about, but the brushes, and I imagine the same thing with like when you're looking through crayons, it's like, it's just, oh, that's a good color. Let me just grab that color and whatnot. And then, so tonight though, you're working on desert stuff.
I am. I've got a Roadrunner.
A Roadrunner. Oh, okay. And you said that's for something else, correct? Like it's for a project, or is it?
No, it was just a recent trip that I took over Christmas. I went to Wake with Tanks in Texas.
Okay.
And there was this road. I saw one Roadrunner, which I was very excited about because they're not easy to see. And then just whenever we came into the park in the morning, there was like lots of little wildlife running around. I saw some javelinos. What are they called in English? Wild boars. Those little wild boars.
Oh yeah. I forget what the name is. There's a specific one that's down in that.
Yeah.
That range. Okay.
In South African goats. So there was all that somehow ran from somewhere and ended up there.
Okay. Okay. All right. I decided I was going to do something that was desert themed, and I was like, and this is me being the jerk student that I am. Is when I was in school, it's anytime someone gave me a prompt, I'm like, how can I bend it to make it different? And so like, I was, okay, I could do a desert, but then I was like, what kind of deserts are there? And I was thinking like, okay, so that I'm so used to when someone says desert, I think of like Arizona and Phoenix and the areas in the States. And then I was like, okay, there is the Sahara. And then all of a sudden I hit and I was like, I think the Arctic is a desert. And I looked it up and it is. It's a polar desert because they just don't get enough rainfall. So I'm going to probably do something that's like polar bear themed. Even though it's desert related, it's still like palette wise seemed like something fun to play with for the night. So why don't we switch our cameras to our work surfaces and then we can get going. I have a feed up here that I can keep track of sort of questions. And I saw there were actually some questions that came in while we were talking. And I want to see if I can get to it real quick, just so we have something to talk about as we switch our cameras. And it looks like it was from, bear with me here, I just got to get to it. How do I say this? D-A-N-A-I-T. Danate? I'm not sure how to, and then last name T-E-Z-A-R-E. Says, thank you for this live. One question, how does the route to freelancing look like? So what is the route for you to getting to sort of the freelance world? Same thing for me, I'll add in, but let's switch our cameras and we can answer that as we go along.
How do I do that? Is it just do I hit the cam? There's
Yeah.
a little arrow circle, and then I have to move my Canva down, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Sorry,
I hope I don't mess this up. Forgive me if I do. Oh, that's that.
That's
You
your
guys
wall.
can see my wall.
And then tilt down.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And the main thing is just keeping it vertical so that, there you go, like that. Oh, no, now we went.
Oh.
Wait, are we too far? Yeah. And back. There you go. Like that. Just so that it stays vertical on the screen.
I'm going to look to make sure you can see it. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
So I'll do the same thing. I have a system that's pretty quick and easy to switch to. So let's talk about freelancing and sort of what it's like, what the start was for you. I mean, coming out of school and thinking graphic design and things of that sort, and then coming back towards illustration and hopping into the kidlit world. Tell me a little bit about sort of that transition or the thought process that went into sort of defining freelance for you and what does freelance look like as a whole?
That is a very good question. I'm trying to think how to fully phrase that. So I think from like breaking into freelance, what that like, how did
Yeah.
it happen?
Yeah. Let's start there.
Well, I started going through the SCBWIs, the Society of Children's Books and Writers,
Mm-hmm.
here in Colorado, and so do I guess I just start to do my
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah, it's as simple, like, it does. I will warn you, sometimes people say it takes a little bit of time to sort of get in the swing of this. But eventually, by the time that you're hopping off, you won't even probably be fazed by the fact that you're drawing and making and talking and all that.
Talking. Okay, I'll do my very best.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started going through the SCBWIs maybe about 2017 in I the college that I work at, because I teach illustration there,
Mhm.
and I was doing like a lot of personal work, but I was really wanting to level it up, and this was like kind of an old dream that I had to break into children's books. Like I've always had like a bit of a children's book collection. I used to be a big thrifter, and I'd always go look around for like little golden nuggets in the thrift stores. Like I learned a lot about like mid-century illustrators and artists when I was in grad school, and so I had like big crushes on like Paul Rand
Yeah.
and Ole Excel and a lot of these guys, and Charlie Harper. Like I really liked that graphic meets illustrative work, and so then I knew it was like just a matter of time before I needed to take the plunge. So I would show up at these SCBWIs, but I was kind of like a little black sheep. I showed up with no portfolio. I would just literally go and watch.
Okay.
and then and then leave and be like, all right, I gotta start
Which,
doing it. So I slowly started to build a portfolio. Sorry, you
which
were gonna ask me something?
SCBWI conferences were you going to? You were going to like New York, or were you
Mm,
staying out there in the
mm-mm.
Colorado area?
Just the ones here in Colorado. Like my college would send me to them, which was really great. So I just started going to the ones here, and then eventually, I think I decided that I was gonna, level up and get a portfolio ready. And I had the help of a lot of friends that I met in the SWDY, folks that also teach at my college that gave me a lot of just great feedback and really helped me out. And then I got an agent. Like I wanted to get an agent, but my work was like not that narrative, not like that children's booky yet. I had like characters, but it wasn't quite there. And so I just sent my work out like randomly to all sorts of agencies. And then I ended up getting a response from Bright. So I was with Bright, which I thought was really nice because it was a good place to be early on, because they allow you to grow when you're there. You don't have to come in and like already be fully
Yeah,
like uh,
formed.
polished. So that was really refreshing. So I kind of grew with them over these past few years. Um, and then I remember the first 2 years, it was a little bit discouraging. So I had an agent, but I wasn't getting any work. And then I was passed around to a couple different agents within Bright, but only very small little things. And then I went to like the New York conference, and I got an honorable mention there. And I was like starting to get recognized at the SCBWI, but I was still getting no work. It's
Okay.
just like, yeah, it was really like, so I had this weird way of coming about it. And then I got the first book like Saturday at the Food Pantry. It was with Albert Weidman, which is like a smaller publisher, and I was just really excited to get it. um and then after that, it just kind of seemed like the universe was like, all right, you've earned this. And then it was like just a landslide ready to happen, and all sorts of books just started coming. It was really exciting.
Did
Yeah.
you did I mean, obviously, yeah, there is the struggle of like trying to break in, especially if it's, you know, I don't want to say it was a flooded market, but definitely that was a time in which there was a lot of books being picked up, sort of early pandemic and just before the pandemic. There was a lot of sort of purchasing that was happening, but that idea of like you're walking into that sort of the market where there's just a lot of people that are trying to get into Kidlit. And you said that, you know, you found an agent, but was there a lot of pressure that you felt at the time? Was it something that sort of you knew that you had to sort of make these leaps of faith into this world? You know, obviously being a teacher in the industry of illustration, you know, a lot of the sort of background of like how hard it is to try to get students ready and to prep people for all the longevity of a career. But what was the sort of the thought process there as you were sort of making that leap?
I just really wanted to see it through. Like I feel like I just really wanted to break in, and I you know, worked really hard. Like Bright would have a lot of these prompts that they would give you to send out to clients, and you know, I would like diligently do them all. And you know, I was like, when I was, I think it helped that when I was in an undergrad, like there was a big culture of like strong work ethic. I would pull all-nighters, and you know, we like we worked really hard. And I think just that, just like just working really hard at it, and just and then like listening to the feedback that people were telling me, which isn't always easy. Like I had a couple like portfolio reviews, and with art directors and stuff like that, and they would tell me things. And then I don't know how it is for some folks, but on some of them, like I was almost like in tears. And then you know, because it's so personal, right?
Yeah,
And I hadn't gotten critiqued in a long time. It was kind of scary. And then I'd be like, all right, this is what I gotta do. Let's go do it. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just like resilient or
maybe, yeah,
crazy.
maybe a little bit more than some of us out there. I know that critiques are still hard to hear for me.
Yeah.
And it's not, I mean, I think part of it is being in this industry long enough, you get sort of, you rest a little bit sometimes and you forget that you need to stay on your toes.
Mm-hmm.
And hearing someone go, hey, this isn't working, or you know, this doesn't look right, can still sting a little, even though you should be sort of, you know, or I shouldn't say you should be, but you would think that you'd have some like, well, I've been doing this long enough and I know how to handle it. It's still, I would assume most everybody goes through that sort of like, it still stings. It's
Yeah,
still, it's still
absolutely.
hard to get past that threshold of saying, yeah, I need to work and I need to get better. So tell me a little bit, like you jump into this industry and just sort of go to that freelance side of things. Were you going full freelance, or was it, I mean, the teaching, I know that you teach, but is the teaching full time, or is it something that, you know, you're worried about sort of contracts on a regular basis because you never know where the next job is coming from?
Um, it's the teaching is full time, but I'm very fortunate. Well, fortunate, I guess there's always give and takes, but I teach online, so I feel like that allows me a lot of time to work on this
Yeah.
practice. And then they're also like my college, they're also very supportive of me. Like they've seen all the some of the books that have come out, and and then they it's worked into our like into we have like a professional development part of our job, like it's a
Yep.
percentage. And so I, because it's online, and because I also have like hours per week that I should be dedicating to this kind of work, but sometimes it's definitely a juggle where
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much happening right now. But
What's
yeah.
what college is it again? I know I saw it somewhere ages ago, but I don't.
Yeah, so I work at Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design,
That's
and
right.
it's our campus is here in Denver and Lakewood. And then we have a lot of online students. And so I teach, I used to teach on the campus, and then slowly I shifted to online, and now I'm basically always online. And so I think that also really helps with me being able to sort of be able to do both.
Yeah. How long have you been teaching?
I've been teaching for a long time, so I At the college, I've been there for almost 10 years, which is crazy. Yeah.
And I hope they don't think that's the same thing. I hope they don't look at it and go, she's been here for 10 years and that's crazy.
Probably. They probably do.
And then how much how much of that does, because I'm in the same boat, and I probably already know the answers, but for anybody that's out there, I think this would be sort of fascinating of how much influence do you get from the students versus they get from you? Is it a like something that really helps you in your career, or is it more of a you give and less take?
Uh, you mean me doing the practice, the
Meaning,
books?
meaning just like the reward of teaching. Like for me, the equivalent of I feel like I get a lot out of teaching that is not necessarily that I'm like, hey, let me steal your ideas, people, but the inspiration of just like uh, being excited about art in that environment and sort of staying on my toes as far as like what kids are interested in, and trying to stay on top of my career, I think, is elevated by the fact that I'm in a location where there's a bunch of students trying to figure out how to start their careers.
Yeah, exactly. It's just that. Like I think I'm a person that I'm kind of like a helper, and I don't like saying no. And then I think I just like to help other people and mentor. Like I knew for a long time I wanted to eventually shift into teaching and then do freelance as well. Like when I was working at the studios, I figured I was like, all right, I'll get all this professional experience and then I'll be able to also share that with folks who want to rise up. But it turns out that I ended up getting a full-time job teaching illustration, not design, like I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, and but yeah, I think it's a win-win situation. I win and they win. But I think it is nice that I'm working in children's books, and especially for those students who want to break into children's books, like I could definitely help them with what that process looks like.
Yeah.
And I feel like so many of students, they just need like an advocate, someone that believes in them and someone that can root for them and push them to work hard. And so I definitely enjoy that part of it a lot.
And then how do you manage your time? Because that's the other side of freelance. I mean, you mentioned the same thing to me, like how do you juggle it all? And
Yes, I'm
uh,
curious. How do you do it?
okay, so let's share our plans, our ways that we manage it. And part of it is I don't. I think it is I have too many things in the air, and I'm sort of always, and I was sort of the type of student. You mentioned the idea of like you pulled a bunch of all-nighters and it showed how much work you put in and how much time and effort. And I was sort of the opposite in the sense of I put in a lot of time and effort, but I didn't pull all-nighters. And the proof of that was because I didn't pull all-nighters that I was like, I got ahead of the game. And so
Mm,
I was that type of student that would really like just get stuff done.
mm.
Um, the maybe not to my benefit in all cases because I would rush through things, but um, in turn, now I look at sort of my career and go, oh
Is
no,
this still? Oh,
what was that?
sorry. I'm just positioning this a little bit
Okay.
better. Never
I'm
mind.
at the point now in my career wherein there's so much going on that I'm not as good at staying on top of things, that I'm sort of like, not that I'm necessarily pushing deadlines to the last second of any sort, but uh, I'm not getting stuff done early like I used to. And I think it's part of it's just life in general, and teaching takes up time and things of the sort. Um, but I wouldn't say that I'm good at juggling all the chaos of any sort. Are you? So, do you struggle trying to manage the workload and?
Yes, sometimes I definitely do, or sometimes it just can feel like a lot. Like now I know, like last year I was doing 3 books, and that felt like a lot to me because I'm definitely like a bit of a perfectionist, and I want to make sure that all the stuff I'm putting out there that I feel happy with it, and and I'm happy that I'm not like gonna be too overly critical of it. And so that felt like too many. And so this year my goal was just to take on a little bit less. So I'm doing 2 this year and seeing how that feels
Yeah,
along with my teaching.
yeah. I mean, that's my ballpark generally is about 2 a year seems pretty fair at this point
Mm-hmm.
too. The other thing too, and do you have family like loved ones and kids and things of that sort, or are you riding solo?
I um
Oh no, you
I
said you have a
have
husband.
I
You
have
said
a
you had.
husband. I got married this year actually, which is no, last year. Wait, we're in 2024. Yeah, I got married last year. Never mind. Yeah, I don't even know what year it is.
Yeah.
That's how chaotic my life is.
Uh,
Yeah, I got married last year, so now I have a
okay.
husband. But and we have 2 cats, and that's it. So he is very supportive of me, and he is definitely like an introvert where he likes a lot of time by himself. And so he's probably thrilled that I'm like doing whatever I'm doing and he's doing his thing.
the the reason I asked that in particular is just like I get to the point wherein um, the the amount of books or the amount of things I take on, there's certain things that I want to go like, yes, I want that job, but I also know that there's a threshold in which if I take on too much, does it sacrifice time spent with family? And you know what I mean? Like it's always I feel like it's always harsh to be like, no, I got to work this weekend and I have to be in my studio the whole time, or deadlines are coming up and my wife has to be up alone in the bed, or not the bedroom, but in the family room for a month straight with me not being there because I'm trying to meet some deadline that is coming up. And so I always worry a little bit about like, how do I control that? And I know I've gotten to the point where in weekends now I try not to work on weekends of any sort. Um,
Same,
yeah,
same. Yeah, exactly.
it feels healthier, I think, more so than just mentally healthier
Hmm.
um, of some
Oh,
sort. But
I
um,
need the new blade.
yeah, do you have a calendar that's crazy looking in the sense of the amount of stuff that you have to do over the next uh, you know coming months, or is it more just you have a smaller amount of things to do, but it just lasts a long time?
I Yeah, I do try to like block out everything, and I like if I have, let's say I have to turn in dummy sketches in like a month or two, like I will break it down day by day on what it looks like, what like how many spreads I need to do per week to meet that deadline.
Yep.
And then I try to be like pretty strict about keeping to that. And I definitely like I use different techniques. Like I actually learned these from Lee White. I don't know if you're familiar with his work.
I do know
He's
Leroy stuff.
actually here in Colorado, but he has a YouTube that's called Get Ass Done. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse here, so I'll
Sure.
just uh, and I
Go for it.
listened to it a while ago, and I really liked his tips. But there's one, it's called self control. And sometimes if I notice that I'm very like distracted and stuff like that, I will put on this little thing on my computer that will block out me answering emails and
Hmm.
then me going on like social medias or whatever. And then I will work for like 30 minutes of high focus, 30 to 40 minutes, and then I'll take a break and then I'll do that again. And that method seems to work well for me.
Yeah, that makes it. I'm not that wise to turn off social media or turn off those kind of things. I have my phone sitting by my side too often.
I do
And
too. It depends on the
yeah,
day. Some days are
yeah,
better than others.
it's uh, it's. I mean, part of the challenge, and you probably have the same thing. Of just there's life. Like I class stuff, students writing me, and I try to be fairly good about getting back to people if I can. And so like it's kind of just always on and always about, and it's not always the best thing in the world to have it like that, but it's sort of it comes with the job essentially.
Yeah. Do
Um,
you teach online too, or is it in person?
it's in person.
Oh, okay.
Like
Where do you
I
teach?
teach at Montserrat College of Art. It's a little tiny private
Oh,
art school that's in just next to Salem, Massachusetts.
Oh, cool.
Beverly, Massachusetts. And when I say tiny, I mean our school has right now I think about 300 students.
Oh, wow, that is
Yeah,
tiny. It's even
for the whole
smaller than
school.
ours.
Yeah, it's we've always been small. They sort of pride themselves on this like small by design, that we're not intending to become a giant school of any sort. Um, and it means there's a lot of flexibility for the students because we require them. We don't have majors, we have concentrations, and so
Hmm.
they have to take classes and other programs and things of the sort, which is sort of a little bit more interdisciplinary than what you might get at some of the larger schools. Um, but I mean, it also comes with the problem of it's a small private art college.
That sounds
And
like
that
my
has,
college.
yeah. How big is the Rocky
But
Mountain?
we're bigger. I think we might be close to 2,000 students now, maybe.
Yeah, you're
But
yeah,
it's
you're
a
a big school.
small liberal arts college. Um, but not that small. That's so cool.
I mean, the fun thing is you basically know everybody. So like, there's not a huge staff. There's not a huge amount of students, so you kind of know everybody by name or by face at least. And there's less of that sort of like people coming out of nowhere that you've never seen before or heard from before. But it also means, as I've said to people, it's sort of like a family. Like, you know everybody and you know all that's going on in their lives, but you also know everybody and know all that's going on in their lives. And that's, it's a good thing and a bad thing. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, it's not always the best thing to know that this student's dating this student and whatnot. But it just comes up in class quite often. Um, but so with the freelance side of things, let's sort of. I'm going back to that question that was there. Um, I'm wondering sort of how you manage your sort of day-to-day time frame. I mean, you mentioned the idea of like sort of hunkering down in your studio and getting stuff done that way. But is there
Mhm.
also you know other things that get in the way? Is there a certain time of day that is your sort of standard work time?
Yeah, I definitely, I'm kind of traditional in that way. I like to work. I like to start right around 8 or 9, and then I'll work until about like 4 or so. Like, I definitely like to keep the regular um, work hours, I
Yeah.
guess I should say. And I'm definitely like, I can tell I'm most productive in the morning. So that's when I try to do obviously the more productive work.
Yeah, the heavy
Um,
lift.
the heavy lift. Yeah, I definitely am more like, I'm more of a morning person than a night person.
So this is rough on you right now, is what you're telling me.
Oh, that's all right. Maybe if it was like midnight, I'd be like, all right, I'm about to fall over.
This is I'm just getting started.
Are
This is
you?
oh yeah, I mean these go for me until midnight or later, and then half the time I'm done and I go upstairs and spend time with my wife and sort of sit up for another hour just chatting or watching shows that we want to get caught up on, and it's a bad habit. Let's put it that way.
Hmm.
Like we're hooked in right now to Love Is Blind, and on Netflix. Do you know Love Is Blind?
No, I might have to check it out. We're always looking for like good shows to watch because we're not very good at like knowing about shows.
Okay, so let me preface this because you said good shows to watch. Um, Love Is Blind. Do you know about The Bachelor?
No, I don't.
What?
No,
Okay,
I
yeah,
don't.
you spend too much time in your studio. You got to get out and see the world. Um, they're what do I want to say? They are trashy trashy relationship reality shows.
Oh, okay. No, I've
And
never
so
heard of them.
Love Is Blind is they date without they date people behind a screen basically. So they're not able to see the person they're dating, and by the end of a couple of weeks, they have to propose to someone if they are interested.
Oh,
And
I've heard
so
of this. I've heard
yeah,
of it.
yeah. And so it's generally a lot of sort of like questionable relationship issues uh,
I
that
love
are
it.
whatnot. So we've been watching that, and so like probably tonight, if if things wrap up early enough, then which for me is like midnight. You never know. I may be up watching an episode of that with my wife, and getting caught up on all the gossip of sorts. But yeah, no, those I wouldn't call those good shows. Those are trashy shows. Those are like having your dessert first kind of situation.
Well, I grew up watching soap operas, like the Brazilian soap operas in Portugal. It was like a religion for people. It was like, oh, it's on, let's all watch it. It was a big thing over there for me.
Right here, wait. Let's see if this works. My father-in-law says this all the time, and we use it. Água de bebê.
Aguas de bebé? Water's a baby?
Isn't it supposed to be like water for drinking? What's water for drinking then?
Oh, agua de beber. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you said baby.
No.
I'm sorry. Aguas de bebé. Aguas de beber. You know what it is, Mark? Is that also like Brazilian Portuguese and Portuguese from Portugal? The pronunciation's a little bit different. So I had to think a little bit about that one because we would pronounce that a little bit differently.
Gotcha. We have a family relative that is sort of was an exchange student that has become part of the family that's from Brazil.
Oh, that's
so we
cool.
have little bits of Portuguese that peek up in our family. I'm trying to remember what the go for a walk is, like passear or something.
Passear, ir passear.
See, I'm educated and I'm cultured. Barely.
Yes.
Barely.
I bet you are.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm pretty darn pale and not cultured. Let's put it that way. So tell me a little bit. Well, let me start this off because I always start these off with these like businessy things, like, hey, what's it like to be an illustrator, etc. Let's get into some like some hijinks here. When you're working, are we listening to stuff? Are we watching things? Is it just dead silent?
No, I definitely think the music helps. Depending on my mood, I'll either listen to, depends on what I'm doing. If I'm just like concepting, like coming up with ideas, I usually feel like I work best in silence. And then my husband tells me that I do the Darth Vader sound where I'm like, in the background, that I breathe really loud.
That must be really lovely to hear that you're making Darth Vader sounds.
So that's funny to me because I didn't even realize it until he told me, and I'm like, oh, I guess I am doing that. And then if I'm just like painting away, then I'll listen to various podcasts or audiobooks or yeah, talk about culture. Sometimes I feel like I listen to like plain things. Like during the last book that just came out, the Pockets book, I think I listened to David Copperfield on audio and Oliver Twist. I don't know why, but I like the British guy's narrator voice. So I just listened to that.
There's nothing wrong with that. Those are now if you're not listening to trash TV or watching it like I do, so you're already ahead. You're getting cultured, and I'm slowly melting my brain. What if the podcast that you listen to, what kind of podcasts are they? Like comedy? Are they talk stuff? Is it murder podcasts?
I listen to like Andrew Uberman, the Uberman guy. I like listening to him because he's like a college professor, and then he'll ramble on for like 2 hours. And after I listen to it very closely for 1 hour, and after that, it's just like background noise. I hope he's not listening to this, but I know I love his podcast. But yeah, and I listen to. So I do some climbing. That's maybe why I don't watch a ton of TV, is because sometimes at night after work, then I'll go to the gym and do climbing. It's like a little bit of a hobby. My husband's definitely like, far more serious into it and far better. I just do it for fun. And so sometimes I'll listen to like climbing podcasts just about like techniques or climbers who did something cool, and I'll just listen to that.
I had no idea that there is content, specifically climbing,
Yeah.
climbing podcasts. I mean, as long as it's not like, okay, I grabbed another handhold.
No, no,
Oh,
it's more like have to train to get
oh,
stronger, like
God.
finger strength, or
my
how
my
did people train to do amazing climbs, more that sort of thing.
no, my shoe slipped a little.
Yeah,
Ooh.
pretty much.
So,
Or I took a massive fall
yeah,
and I didn't break anything. That happens too.
super exciting content that's there for people. Um, and then when you're working, what do you set any sort of goals for yourself in the sense that, like, you talked about the figuring out the pages and what you have to get done per day, which I feel like should be a SCBWI course, in a sense
Yeah.
of like, how do you actually do the math involved with doing picture books? Because everybody does that same thing, I think, of like, okay, I got this many spreads, I have to have them done by this day, which means I got to get 3 spreads done a week. And then if I get that done, I need to make sure I move this one to that week because that'll be easy. Like, I feel like everybody does that
Yeah.
in some sense. Is there do you have order to things? Is there like structure to the way that you work, or is it more of just like, again, loosey goosey, that today I feel like working on this spread and tomorrow I'll work on this other one?
No, because my time is, definitely somewhat limited. No, I do know like what needs to, I do set like this spread such and such needs to be done this week.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely have to be very specific like that. I don't have, I know some illustrators have like the Excel sheets. I think I'm a little bit old school where I write it all down on I have like a little, I buy these little planners for each year, and then it has like books, like it's very like archaic. and
Okay.
then and then I do have like, I'll cross things off, like I'll write it all down. It's kind of crazy, but yeah.
And the what happens if you miss a day?
Then I'm
What happens if you get sick?
then I'm screwed. No, just kidding.
Yeah. There's is there some sort of like for me, there's times where like if I fall behind, I really do start to stress out.
Yeah, I do. I definitely get stressed out. I try not to
And
fall too much behind, but it definitely also happens where I just like, I wish I was faster sometimes.
and when you say faster, okay, give me a sense of the speed in which you work.
Like I feel like I can get with, with my teaching and everything, I feel like I can get about 2 spreads done per week, maybe sometimes 3 if I'm lucky.
Okay.
Like I'm like, man, I wish I was even faster than that, but that seems to be about the speed to which I usually do things.
Yeah, I mean that sounds about like what I'm at as well, where it's I'd be happy if I could get 3 done, but sometimes depending on how complex the spread is.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing too is, and it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but because you're working traditionally and digitally and all across the board, that it's not an instantaneous process. It's not like you can just go and say, I'm going to sit down for an hour and I'm going to be done with it, because there's steps involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I guess this is about me, but I'm also so curious about you
Yeah, that's fine.
too.
Sure.
Do you work, is yours all done traditionally then, Mark?
Yeah, I mean the only digital that I do nowadays is for sketching, just to get so I don't have to copy and paste, or so I can copy and paste like little moments and things of the sort. But for the most part, everything is done traditional, and I throw it in the computer to do touch up.
Okay, that's really cool. I'm working towards that. I feel like I end up just like the deadlines start to lurk, and so I end up defaulting to the process that I'm used to the most. That's working well for me, and that I can do it in a fast manner. But I think eventually I do want to try to move back towards traditional, which is how when I was in college in the '90s, that's how it was all done. So
So tell me why. and I'm not challenging you in the sense of like, why would you think that? But more so like, is there some reasoning for you that says, hey, this is the way to do this because it feels better, because you think the market needs it, because sort of where does that mindset come in that you want to move back towards something like that?
I think I just miss like the full-on tactile part of it so much, like sometimes being on the iPad starts to feel a little bit, I guess, robotic because it is like it is in a way a machine. And I think I miss just some of that, going back to my roots of doing it all by hand. I think as soon as I can figure out a fast way of doing it that way, then I'll probably go back to mostly doing it. And I think there's a part of me that feels I the undo thing would be hard to give up. Like it would be good to
Mhm.
not undo so much and just to let maybe some happy accidents happen that are out of my control. I think it would be nice not to have the option to just undo. Like I was doing the gift in box. I did it half traditionally, half digitally.
Yes.
And I remember when I was doing the traditional pieces, there was times where I was like wanting to undo and then realizing that I couldn't quite do that because it
Nope.
was paper collage. Maybe if it was like acrylic, it would be easy to like cover it up and yeah.
Yeah,
But I
you
think
get
it
you
has
get
more
one
just to
shot.
do with me. Yeah.
No, I mean I'm of that mindset that I love the happy accident, and I can't recreate the happy accident with digital. But there are times where I wish I could undo. Definitely, there are times where I wish I could move backwards with something, and it's not always because I made a mistake, but because I see another opportunity
Yeah.
that, like, oh, if I put this layer here, like especially working with things that are like collage, it's like, oh, if that didn't dry so fast, I could definitely put this layer down in a different way that might allow me to put, a different texture in or whatever it may be. um, but the reason why I asked about sort of what brings that on is I've heard from quite a few people that are digital that they kind of want to get back towards that. I'm wondering if there is a sort of industry, what do I say, like trend potentially that says, hey, let's move back towards something that is maybe a little bit more traditional because of AI or because of all these other
Mm.
coming into play. Um, and I don't know if it's 100% true, and I don't know if that means anything, to be honest, to say like that may be why people are doing it. But um, there is something about, and I agree with you, like there is something nice about digital, but there's also like in the sense of like the flexibility in how you work. But I also know that like for me that flexibility comes with a downside, which is the irregularity or the spontaneity gets lost for me in the way that I work, and that's not true for everybody. um
Yeah.
so, so uh I have to wait for this to dry now so I can put my
Yeah, same
Twitter.
with me. I'm letting one little eye dry. I think what I was really excited about Procreate was that I would see people work in Procreate, like, and I just loved how it felt analog, like it had more of that direct contact. Like I never took to like a Wacom tablet. I couldn't grasp it, like my traditional brain
Mm-hmm.
of like drawing directly onto the thing. It's just that, and I just couldn't grasp like drawing in one place but seeing it show up in another way. Like I don't know if I'm like slightly dyslexic, but I couldn't do it. And then when I finally tried the iPad, I was like, all right, I think I could really take to this. When I first started this whole process, I did an ink droplet challenge on Instagram to kind of get myself going, and all those pieces were done, in paper collage, which is what I love. And then I think when I started that first book that I did, Cedra at the Food Pantry, was like a very fast deadline. And by then I was like, I knew how to do some of the things in Procreate, which is, I was pretty much just doing them the same way that I was paper collaging. I was like erasing shapes, erasing stuff with an eraser instead of using scissors in Procreate. So I felt like my method digitally is very similar to the traditional method that I use, but it was just it felt like it was a little bit faster, and then I would be scared of making mistakes, and so I started working in that route. And I was always trying to find ways to bring some of my own textures to it. like anything from the traditional and kind of merge it. And I think a lot of artists that work in that way, like it's really, I love that kind of art that somehow combines both.
Yeah. Do you find, especially on the teaching side, I assume most of your students are on an iPad or something of the sort nowadays?
Yeah, a lot of them are. A lot of them do traditional work too, but yeah, we have a lot of students who want to do like look at their portfolios and the work that was done traditionally is it's more refined, more sophisticated than some of the digital stuff. The digital brush, there's a lot of like they use a lot of soft brushes, if that makes sense. There's not a lot
Yes.
of like differentiation in edges, like hard edges and soft edges. There's not a lot of like edge control that I feel when you work traditionally, you can't unless you're using a straight up airbrush. It would or you're like using a fan brush and you're fanning it out and fanning it out and getting it really smooth. I feel like those edges show up more when you're working traditionally without you be doing much to it, if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. I mean, even
Yeah.
the idea of it's like when I was in high school and sort of learning how to draw, there was a lot of push towards like the drawing skills that you need are these skills, and it was gravitating more towards like, can you make a nice transition from dark to light? And so it was a lot of like blending, and um, and so it was like, you get out your charcoal or you get out your graphite and you get your little blending stick and you try to get the most perfect blend between all of the colors, and in turn it doesn't have the texture and it doesn't have the life that potentially you would want in your piece because you're so concentrated on just getting the right blend. And I feel like maybe that's something that like I agree with you that maybe is showing up in a lot of sort of, especially on younger students. Like I think by the time they hit some of the older sort of years and whatnot, that's removed. But at the beginning, there is a lot of sort of gravitating towards trying to make things really smooth
Mm-hmm.
and not letting. And again, it goes back to that idea of like not letting some of the edges just sit and be, and they potentially overwork things.
Yeah.
Uh, and part of that is just, you're right. It's easy to just say that, to the computer of like, I want to zoom in on this and I want to concentrate on this one area and not step back for a second and go, well, how does it look as a total sort of image? And that's a hard thing to get used to, especially when you're used to like the ability to zoom in 1,000 times. So it's it's interesting to hear that that's coming from you and your school of 2,000 halfway across the country, and it's the same basic sort of issues that show up
Mm.
in students that we have in our school. And it's not to say that the students are bad or anything of the sort,
Yeah.
but it just, the way in which they work has a similar pattern, let's put it that way,
Yeah.
from school to school. um, And then, so tell me a little bit about sort of the your background. I mean, you said born in Portugal, or grew up in Portugal.
I
Um,
grew up there.
what was your experience like there as a kid, in the sense of, were you always a book nerd? Is is the book world something that you came to later in life? Did you have access to a lot of amazing books at the time, or was it sort of you were limited by location? What? Give me a sense of that.
It's interesting you asked me this. So I was raised by my grandma, and my grandma grew up during the Portuguese fascism. And so there was a lot of illiterate people. My grandma actually she couldn't read or write. And my dad was an immigrant in Australia. I know I have like a very interesting upbringing. During the 70s when Portugal became a democracy, a lot of people, who didn't have a lot of schooling or education, they all left and went and got jobs abroad. And so there was like a mass immigration. And my dad he was one of those, and he immigrated away to Australia. And then we would write letters to him because this was like in the 80s. I'm a mid-70s child, just to give you a little, do the
Okay.
math. I'm not gonna
Yep.
do it. And and so we would once we learned how to write, then we were always writing letters to my dad. My grandma would sit there and dictate them to us. And then she didn't know how to read or write, and I think she saw the value. She saw so much the value of getting an education to help that make something out of you, literally.
Hmm.
It's just that was always like something she really instilled in us, was, the way up is going to be for you to get an education. And then these traveling salesmen, we didn't go to the library or anything, just, books, just education, elementary school. But these book salesmen would come to our door, and she would buy like the Reader's Digest. I don't know if this is something that's around, where they would give you, it's like a membership to Reader
Yep.
Digest. And then we would get like Little Women and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and she would get all these books for us, which I think is really great. And so we would read those. And then my aunt, we had an older cousin, and she would give us a lot of the books that he was like kind of done reading. So I also read a lot of comic books that I inherited from him. I mean, I read a fair amount, but I wouldn't say I was like reading a ton of stuff, but definitely within reason. But I always saw the value in, like, um, for me at least, in education and books, and those seem to be present in my life.
So what brought on kids books then? Like what was the turning point that made you go, "Oh, I need to be a kids book person"?
Uh, well, I wanted, when I was in, I always, me and my sister, we were always very creative, even as children. And, we were like the typical kid that was, you were drawing from a very young age, or making things. My grandma, because she was so old school, she made everything by hand, a lot of things by hands. And I think that just kind of got instilled in us. So we just love to make anything by hand, sewing or drawing, or helping her cook, or helping in the garden any way that we could. Um, and so that was always like ever present. And then over there in Portugal, they push you picking a major much earlier than they do here in the US. And in high school, like when ninth grade, they want you to pick a major. And I sort of always kind of figured I would study some kind of art, because it's just the path was really clear. I wish I would have listened to my dad and like became a nurse or a lawyer, something more profitable. But I didn't. I was like, I want to be an artist. So I was always wanting to be an artist. And when I was in ninth grade, I switched and I went to a high school for the arts in Lisbon. And at the time, this was in like the early 90s, and only our teacher had like a computer. I remember seeing Photoshop, and we would do like crazy like letter set and draw the type by hand. But you would also, it was like the graphic arts were all mixed together. It wasn't like now you study graphic design, you study illustration. It was like you did, like, you dabbled in some animation, but it was all like handmade animation. It wasn't anything on the computer. And you dabbed into type, and you dabbed into illustrating. You did it
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
So so then I was like, oh, I really want to study animation. I was like, wanted to work for Disney, of course. Why not? So, and then that was one of the reasons I came to the United States. I wanted to study animation. And then I took I think I saw some of the animation classes, but at the time it was all like that 3D modeling.
Okay.
I just couldn't wrap my head around it. It just didn't seem like my place. And I just sort of landed in illustration. And I mean, I've always loved just characters that feel playful and naive. And there was just always something that I think I was doing. And yeah, and when I was in illustration, I didn't quite know where I was going to go with it. I don't know if it was like children's books or editorial. Like at the time, editorial was big, like Brett Holland. And
Yep.
I also like, my hero was Lane Smith. I loved all his books. We met him in New York one time for a school trip. And so I didn't quite know where I was going to go with it. But then at that time, I started collecting art books and children's books, and was just always get really happy whenever I saw like a children's book that I had to walk out of the bookstore with. So
It's it's in. I mean, we basically have the same basic path at it, time
Wow.
wise, etc. And so like Brad Holland, etc. Like I was in the era of like I wanted to be an editorial person. It was Brad Holland. It was Jordan Issip.
Yeah.
It was, it was probably like a lot of the same people, a lot of the same crowd, and uh, Lane Smith, etc. For me, it was Lori Keller. I'm trying to think of who else was like of that era that I was like absolutely fascinated. It was mainly Lori Keller, to be honest. Just her sense of humor and whatnot. Um, but it's sort of sounds very similar in sort of like the upbringing and the time frame, and
Mm.
especially thinking of like the students now, they all want to do character and world building, and I feel like at the time it was everybody wanted to do editorial,
Yeah.
and it's just the ebb and flow of the industry itself changed as time went on, and our heroes became a different crowd potentially, or turned into something else. Um, do you get an opportunity to converse with kids about your books often?
Like
Like,
children?
yeah, like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Meaning like,
Sorry.
no, meaning do you get to do like book events and things of that sort, or are you sort of, is that harder to come by just because of the teaching side of like
Oh, I
getting the time
do.
away?
I actually just did a book reading for Pockets last Friday. And yes, children came and it just like makes me so happy. And I'll send out, when we get the boxes from the publisher, like I have friends who've got kids, and I'll send like a copy out to friends, and they tell me what the kids love about the books, and that makes me really happy. And I've definitely have done like did a library event for Gift and Box, and um the author Ellen Mayer came out, which was really cool, and we made crafts with the kids, we because it was about a box. We got big cardboard boxes and recreated the box with the eyes and the little lookout thing, and the kids loved getting into those. I mean, yeah, I love just seeing bringing it back around, and like actually getting to see the books and the kids interacting with the books. And
Yeah.
whenever my friends tell me what the kids liked about the book, it will definitely make me super happy to hear these kinds of feedbacks. You're like, all right, yay.
No, they're not telling you what the kids don't like about the books, right?
Yeah, not so much that part, but I'm sure the kids would tell me, because kids are usually so
Yeah,
honest.
I didn't like it at all. I thought it was boring and slow. Um, hey, if you have certain family members like I do, sometimes they say it's not their favorite book either.
Oh.
Uh, so there's been a couple of those throughout time. Um, the the idea of sort of getting out in front of kids is always such, I think, like probably the more rewarding part of this. I mean, obviously financially, that's the rewarding part. When you get to sit back in your limousine as you're being driven to your country club and all the, yeah, when you're when you're
I
deciding to
also,
stay at the guest house that you have at the beach.
yeah,
That's the
exactly.
era. Yeah.
When I'm back in Portugal, my cousin has a young son that's 8, which is like perfect age, and my other friend also has kids right around their age. And I was working remote from there to be able to spend a little more time with my parents as they're getting older.
Yeah.
And I had the kids pose for some of the picture books for like the poses I needed, and it
Oh,
was
nice.
a lot of fun.
And now they have a claim to fame that they can share with all their friends.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, but they loved it. They were like, "What? What do you want me to do next? Want me to roll on the ground?" I'm
yeah.
like, "Sure, yes, roll."
Anything to take up time and to keep you occupied while I work. Uh, do you uh, do you get school visits and things, or is it primarily like bookstores and stuff that you're doing?
Right now, it's been bookstores. I heard that for the school visits that it's best if you are the author illustrator, and I haven't written any books yet, but I would definitely like to. So I
Okay.
haven't done any school visits. Have you?
Yeah, I do school visits, and I do school visits for stuff that I didn't author.
Oh, do
Um,
you?
yeah, I mean, I do think that maybe it's a little bit easier if you have authored it. I do feel a little bit of pressure when it's not something that I wrote in a way to, like, I don't know, to jazz it up extra because I didn't write it, but the kids don't care. The kids are excited just to be, to have someone come visit. Um, and so I don't think that's really that big of a deal as maybe people make it out to be, and included, as myself in that I'm not the quickest at allowing myself to, have that freedom to say, like, I can just go in there and read whatever. But I do think that the kids don't care as much as we adults think they would, or that schools don't care as much. They're just happy to have someone come in. So I would reach out if you are not
Oh,
at this point.
okay, I will. I've been like putting it off because I'm like, well, I haven't written any books. That's good to know. Yeah, I definitely will. I mean, I think that's also like the draw. Even though I don't have kids, I feel like I'm a big kid myself. And
Yeah.
you sort of emulate the same, not to tell you that you're childish. You seem very childlike. I don't know if that's a good, don't get mad at
Oh,
me. I
yeah.
mean it in a good way.
And click, we hang up. No, I'm an idiot. I'm a dumb kid at heart. I'm not offended by that of any sort. In fact, I would wear that with a what do I want to say, like it's a badge of honor to say that I'm a little kid at heart, and that I can be a little childish at times. Uh, I'm absolutely okay with that. So go ahead, say it again. Um, I to me, I mean, this is the reason why this is such a fun field, is that it's just, you get to be a silly on a regular
Mm-hmm.
basis, and silly can be, you are working on a silly idea, but it also can be, you get to get up in front of a bunch of kids and act like an idiot for however many minutes you have, and I think that's okay. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the so going off of that a little bit, let me not tell you, let me ask you. Um, you mentioned the idea of, you haven't written anything, but where's that in the lineup right now?
It's
Are you
uh
writing?
am I no, I'm not writing anything right now. I haven't had time yet, but I have ideas. And I'm definitely wanting, it's priority because I would really like to try and write some stories as well. I have uh a couple ideas. I'm a little scared too. I'm like, okay, am I going to be good at writing picture books in English? But I would like to definitely give it a shot.
Do you find that like at my school there is, a creative writing program and stuff like that, and I can probably take more advantage of it than I am right now. But I have plenty of folks that have offered to, like, hey, I'll look through your manuscript. Now, do I follow through with that? No, I don't, because I'm always hesitant, and I have the same fear of, like, is it going to be good enough? But does your school have something of the sort, like a writing center that you can go to and say, hey, take a look at this thing. What do you think?
They've got like we have like the student learning center, and you probably, I've gone in there before with like even like my artist statement for my website. I think I went in there and I had them just like double check it for me because I'm that worried that I was like, is my English gonna sound weird? Like, and they did look it over. I'm in a critique group here in Colorado with my SCBWI, so I'm hoping to rely heavily on them when I finally do have a story to have it looked over.
Yeah, I just wrote one the other day that there's times where I write and it's a real struggle, and there's times where I write something and it just pours out in a matter of minutes. And I wrote one just the other day that I'm bringing to a crit group tomorrow night, and I hope they like it.
Ooh.
It may be one of my favorite things that I've written ever, and it could be an absolute dud, and they may just go like, "That's a dumb idea. Why would you think that book would work?" But right now it is pretty top notch, and if it wasn't for the fact that I haven't dummied it out yet, I would be sending it off to my agent right away. But I gotta get it into dummy form first. I can't reveal what it is because it's so good
I
that
bet it's
someone
gonna
out there
be
is gonna steal it. Yeah,
awesome.
someone's gonna steal it, and it'll ruin my career for the end of my life. Um, do you feel that the writing side is scary because it's a genre that you, or a method that you have not really done much, or is it just a like, do I know what I'm doing?
I think it's more because I haven't done it before. You know, like it's one thing to make images like that. I'm very familiar with that process. I've also thought about, I was like, well, I could try and do a wordless book if I'm too intimidated by actually writing one. But I think it's more just because it's something I haven't dabbed into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I say just do it. Just
Just
do
do
it.
it.
I mean, who is your agent right now? It's not Bright Agency anymore, is it? Or is
No, I signed with Andrea Morrison at Writer's House.
at Writer's House? That's right. Okay. Yeah, just that little agency, Writer's House. It's like top tier, uh, top tier agency. I always like there's a couple of agencies out there that I'm like, oh, those are the ones, and Writer's House is up there for me. I mean, I'm at a different agency, and I love my agency and whatnot, but Writer's House is like that. That is no like no small effort there. That's Stephen Malk and all the
Yeah.
folks. Was that something that you had to do a lot of like leaving Bright Agency because you left at some point?
Yeah.
They didn't kick you out the door, did they?
No.
Okay.
They didn't
So
have time to do that. Just kidding. I did it first. No, just kidding.
the door was already closing by the time that you got there. No, did was how was that sort of transition? Because I know that can be a little scary too. Just the idea of you could not sign with Writer's House until you left.
Yeah.
Right. Was there a gap in between, or was that something that it was from one to the other real quickly?
No, there was a little bit of a gap for sure, and it was really scary, and it still feels scary because right now the books that I'm working on this year are still through Bright, so that whole process might sound strange to people who haven't worked with agents, because they did get me a lot of work, and I'm definitely thankful for everything with them. It's just I was wanting to move more towards a literary agency.
Yeah. And they have like a kid lit section, but it's more of a illustration versus versus
exactly. It just kind of felt like it was time to move on as well, a little bit, but it was really scary. It was like it's not like you with a normal job you put in your 2 weeks, and or you can start looking for like another job, and then as soon as you get the other job you're like, all right, quit, I'm leaving in 2 weeks. For us it doesn't work like that. Like there's that cooling off period, and a lot of times they'll shorten that for you, but you're totally jumping into the unknown. It can feel really scary because you're like, oh gosh, what's going to happen now?
Giving a safety net of sorts that you've had for a while. I mean, it's hard to land an agent to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
If there's anybody listening and going like, yeah, how do you land an agent? It is not an easy process. There's a lot of people looking for agents, so it's not like you can just drop one and go, yeah, I'll just take this on now. And so that is scary. I mean, at one point I had to, I don't want to say threaten, but I had to talk about like potentially leaving an agency in order to sign up with another agent at one point. Because I actually have two agents. I have an art agent and I have a literary agent.
Oh, you do? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was. I had an art agent that covered everything, and then I negotiated out of the literary side with them. And that was a whole nother. That's a long story, but that idea of like at one point they said they didn't want me to leave the agent or to get rid of the kidlit side of things, and I had to say, well, it's either I leave or or essentially you let me out of the kidlit side, and they eventually said, yeah, it's fine, you can get out of the kidlit side. But that it is a scary proposition to say, hey, like, I'm willing to potentially sacrifice it all to make this leap into a different or to a different agency or to a different sort of opportunity. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, especially if they're getting you work, which was my case.
Yeah. They were getting me work. I mean, the reason that I got into Kidlit in the first place is because of my art agent. They got a deal for me, and that's part of it. So it is a hard thing to make that leap, though, and go, thanks for the help. I got to move on.
And so you still do, what kind of work do you do for the not the literary agent, for the other agent then?
I do a lot of sort of editorial.
Oh, cool.
Sometimes some, like, I did a couple of gigs recently that were editorial stuff, podcast design for their the image that goes on like iTunes and things of the sort. It's a lot of sort of just other types of illustration for the most part. It's not like there's a set thing. Sometimes book covers, things of that sort. And then what's funny is the literary agent that I have is purely Kidlit. And so if I want to get anything that's like Highlights Magazine, that would actually not be through my literary agent. That would be through the art agent.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and so it's a little bit of a different setup, and it's not. I wouldn't recommend it for everybody because there are some challenges of like who is promoting what and making sure that if some job comes into one, that the other one knows, and that you're equitable between all of it. But it has worked out okay for me so far. Let's put it that way.
That's so cool. Wow. So you do stay pretty busy. That's great.
Honestly, busy comes from teaching and comes from gallery shows and like all sorts of stuff. And then books is part of it. But honestly, the teaching keeps me busy enough.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I'm not just I'm not just in the classroom. I'm a chair.
Oh wow! Wow, you are?
School.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that means there's a lot more meetings.
Yeah. Yes, there are. Oh, that's so cool. I'm like feeling so inspired by being here with you. Like I'm thankful that you invited me. It's like breathing fresh water into my life right now.
Wait a second. First of all, you don't breathe water.
Or whatever you breathe, fresh air or whatever.
Yeah. You're breathing fresh water. We need to clarify that that is not the idea that anybody should go with. It's like trying to eat bricks. Like I feel like you're just saying some weird like combination of things that make zero sense to me. But no, this thank you for joining. I mean, obviously we invite on people that we are inspired by too, and so like seeing your work and sort of following you and getting to know people in this situation is always sort of the goal of this. It's less about like, for me, it's less about trying to discover like how you work and more about and that's part of it, but it's more about sort of like just getting to know people and to have conversations. And so wait, who's saying, oh, Kaylee Quarles, do you know Kaylee Quarles?
Of course, I love Kaylee.
Yeah, Brizida is such a badass. She's amphibious. Yes, there you go. Can have water. Has grown
English
gills.
kind of sucks sometimes, especially if I get nervous. I say a lot of nonsense.
Hey, if you've ever tuned into these and it's late at night, you'll hear a lot of nonsense out of me. So here we got a question that I'm not sure how much it relates to you, but we'll find out. So it's from Night Owl Art, who says, how do you go about getting into a gallery show? Is it typical for an artist to approach a gallery, or is it more common to look for a gallery seeking an artist? So do you do gallery work at all?
I don't. That question is for you because that's one of my former students.
Oh, it is? Okay. So first of all, Night Owl Art, how was Brizida as a teacher?
Oh, I'm in trouble now.
Yeah, you shouldn't
Amy,
I've
please
ever admitted
lie.
that. That's not a good idea in front of me. Oh, or better yet, how was night owl art as a as a student? What grade did you give night owl art?
Night owl is like you. She's a night owl. She
Good.
wor- she worked late into the night, which was always inspiring to me while juggling 4 children. I think 4 at least.
Wait, has 4 children and was going to school?
Mm-hmm. Woo.
That's that is yeah, that's those are the times where like an excuse actually works, where it's not just like, hey, I was tired, but it's literally like I had 2 kids puking on me, and my husband was away for the week, and those kind of valid excuses. So how do you get so the question is, how do you get into gallery shows, and do galleries write you, or do you write the galleries? um, it depends on the galleries, to be honest. Like if you're in illustration, and maybe you can answer this, Brizida, but is night owl art an illustrator or a painter, or
I think she's open. Amy's probably opening to dabbing into both, just like
okay.
yourself. Like probably would love to get into children's books and also do some gallery stuff too.
Okay. So, because why I say that, there are galleries that are more specific for illustrators, and then there's other ones that are more like, the fine art side, and they probably have different approach based on the type of artists that want to get into them. So if you're dealing with something that's like a highbrow paintings and sculptures and things of that sort, there are a lot of artists that are looking for shows, and there's a lot of competition there. And oftentimes that's primarily like local, where people are really connected to the space, or the gallery director has some relationship to that artist and brings people in themselves. The type of galleries that I show in are much more of a like I don't want to say like sillier, but they gravitate maybe a little bit more towards illustrators. And so that's galleries like Gallery Nucleus, Gallery 1988. The one that I show at here in New Hampshire is one that's called the Nakata Gallery, Nahcotta, and they do a enormous tiny art show that's gotten pretty big across this old country of ours. And outside of that, where people, it's like a small work show, but they've sort of grown their artist list through these small works, and then those turn into other shows. And some of those, like those small work shows, you can actually write to them and just say, hey, I'm interested in being in a show, and they either say yay or nay. As far as the like trying to get a solo show, that's a little bit harder, because they have to put a lot of faith in the fact that you're prepared and that you have work that is going to sell in their gallery. Again, my work, when it's small, is a lot easier to move stuff if it's small and cheaper. And I want to make sure they're not like, it's not so small and so cheap that it's not worth my time. So I charge by the hour basically on a piece. But there is a difference in the type of gallery depending on sort of what makes sense for your area and what you're trying to get. Have you done any work for galleries at all, or is it primarily, Brizida, this is for you, but or is a majority of it sort of like don't do gallery work at all?
I did. I used to do more like a little bit more gallery stuff, but I was very like open to whatever came my way. I mostly have done like group shows, and then mostly it was all like word of mouth, like things here in Boulder. Um, and like in the early days, it was really cool because that's what brought me to Boulder. Is I got a job out here with an advertising agency, and
Mm-hmm.
then I would like still work on personal work a lot when I was at home after work. I guess similar to you. And at that time, like I would work later into the night. And then I started like showing at coffee shops. Like I was open to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the art would sell, and I'd get really excited. And my coworkers and my boss, they would all come for the openings, it was actually really fun. And then with some, I participated in like Denver Art Crank a couple of times for like the bicycle poster show, you know, that
Yeah.
they do around, they used to do that around the country. And then just did like more like word of mouth, like group shows, had like some maybe smaller, there was one that I did with a friend at a gallery, but it was all like very much through word of mouth, through connections,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. That's, I mean, for the most part, that's what happens. But I do some of those smaller galleries, or sort of the, I don't want to call them sort of silly illustrator galleries, but a lot of those, it's I assume it's word of mouth, or it is, you know, people see you on Instagram and they go, hey, your work would be fun for this show. So like the equivalent of Gallery 1988, they do a lot of like pop culture shows. So rather than just being like, hey, here's a show that the theme is you know, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like transformation. Instead, it's like, hey, we're having a show that's about uh, the movie. I'm trying to think of a good like movie that would be a great example for this. A lot of cult things. So like leaving Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That would be the type of show that they would put on. And so there's a lot of people that do sort of pop art and more what do I want to call it? Like again, illustrative work. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I was just in I just went to go see one that some friends of mine were in. That it was more of that in that illustration sort of arena, and the theme was the Year of the Dragon, which I thought was
Yep.
great. And so all the pieces were the same size. They were like these miniature little dragon pieces, and everybody did some sort of dragon, and it was just really fun to see all the different ideas that people came up with. But that's, for example, I think like a good example of an more of illustrative one.
Yeah. Even the gallery, I think it's Gallery 1988 that does it. Does a show, maybe it's Gallery Nucleus. I can't remember. There's a show that's all sticky notes. So
Oh,
like
that's so
little
cool.
Post-its. And so everybody, you know, all the work sells for the same price, and it doesn't require a lot of people to make something that's just a sticky note. You know what I mean? Like it literally is, you buy a sticky note and you draw something on it, and that's the piece. And some people will do like amazing paintings on them, and some people will just make a little doodle. But those are great for just getting into the gallery scene. So you're not sort of living in a world that is, you know, only dependent on these big shows and requires a ton of work on your part to get your name out there. That is quite helpful. Oh no, Giant Robot. Giant Robot's the one.
Oh yeah, that's another one, Giant Robot.
Yeah. And so like all of those are good sources if you're trying to break into like the gallery scene, is find some of those smaller galleries that allow those small work shows and things of the sort. I mean, I did a show, the first show that I did at Nakata was a small work show. It was, I don't even remember which enormous tiny art it was, but they put up my work online, and before the show even opened, I had sold all the pieces. I had like 12 in there, and you know, I got a fairly robust following from that single show that has led to other solo shows and other events accordingly after the fact. And so it was worth the time and effort to put into that small work show, even though that may not pay a ton. It is worth doing that, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. It's I'm like actually stopping and looking at what you're doing, because otherwise I don't even get to see. I want to see how you make these. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's going to be polar bears, and there's going to be a penguin here that's got a little suitcase, and so he showed up on the wrong shore. There's for those, I'm sure everybody knows this, but they don't cohabitate. One's in the Arctic and one's in the Antarctic. I can't even say it. One's in the Arctic and one's in the Antarctic, and so I'm just playing off of that for it. And I want to figure out if there's something fun to do up in the space up above. Maybe I'll do like a night sky or something of the sort up there. Some like really dark thing that sort of plays off of that. But so I'm just trying to get an interesting palette, like these grayish colors instead. I've been watching this Roadrunner come about. I had no idea when you put up the sketch originally. I had no idea that it was going to start with a dark background. Like for some reason in my mind, what you were doing was going to be this like light daytime thing. You immediately put that like that blue right across everything. I was like, whoa, where are we going with this thing? How much of your work is sort of intuitive and how much of it is pre-planned?
For the for the book, obviously, like the book's it's got to go through the whole approval, so that's very much planned. But personal work, it's not as I don't plan it as much. Like if I'm just doing stuff in my sketchbook, it's more intuitive. I would say like colors and things like that. It's all like very much intuitive. And of course, I have like inspiration that I like. I just love all of that mid-century primary, like heavily primary colors. And I love looking at those old books that have those retro sort of color palettes, like in, like I love just cutting out old National Geographics, and especially the ones like not from the 80s, but the ones from the 60s and the 50s have
Mm-hmm.
great coloring in them. So I think all of that kind of serves as inspiration. So it's really fun for me to work side by side with someone, because I haven't really done this since school, since I was in college studying illustration. Because they gave us a big room, and then we all had a desk, and then we just live in there. Once you got your desk, it was like, all right, you can stay here all night, you can even sleep here if you want.
Yeah.
And this is kind of making me reminiscent of those days where you'd go around and you'd see what your classmates were up to. It was really fun.
Did did you did you make your classmates all jealous the whole time because you were so good?
I doubt it. They're probably like, "Oh my gosh, she has risen." No, no, they were very supportive of each other. It was actually a friend of mine. I think I was having like a bad day, and we were talking. Somehow she contacted me from those days. We still talk sometimes, and she was like, "Brigida, you were born to do this." I'm like, "Okay, I'll get back to work then."
I was. Oh, there's my dog. Sorry about that. She's gonna bark for a second at nothing. Um, one of the things I feel like when I was in school, it's not to say that I didn't have friends of any sort, but I definitely worked from my apartment more than I did in a studio. Like I never had a senior studio space. I wanted to work in my own space. It made more sense to me. But it was something wherein like I know there was a lot of camaraderie in that space that potentially I missed out on because I was very shy. I was a shy little boy.
Were you? You're not now. You're funny and quirky.
I have gotten over it in certain situations. I'm definitely not as shy as I once was. Let's put it that way. I become an idiot in other ways, and now I make a fool of myself on a weekly basis here. Were you the student that would raise your hand all the time to answer questions?
No, I was more like asking a lot of questions and just being confused.
Okay.
And a lot of like probably questions that people are like, really, you're asking that question?
Yeah. Sort of like, what's a circle? What's a triangle? Those kind of
Pretty much.
yeah, those kind of questions. Excuse me, can you go over that again? I didn't quite get it. Triangle has
Or
sides.
I would like go into my professor's office and like cry. Do I have what it takes? Am I gonna be okay? Like I feel like so many of us would just go in there and be like, am I gonna make it?
Oh, that's sad. Did they actually give you an answer that was yes, or was it a big old no way? You're in trouble.
It depends on who it was, but usually, like, I just remember a professor was like, "Yeah, you'll be okay." But then we also had some like the figure drawing teacher. He was kind of ruthless, and he usually would go around and just be like, "You can't paint a pretty girl to save your life." Just that sort of thing.
I feel like, and you know, there's a teacher at my school that is a drawing teacher that's very much in that same sort of like world of not necessarily that he's like mean, but he's known as he has a very distinct thing that he wants, and a lot of students really respect him because he is very sort of like brutal in a way.
Yeah.
But I feel like even when I was in school, we had the same thing. We had a teacher that was this like known as like he's the drawing teacher, and you got to have him as your drawing teacher, or else
Yeah.
you're gonna miss out on the like the truth about it all. And so I never had him, so I probably did miss out, and I'm probably like struggling in my life because of it. But I feel like that's a pretty common type of teacher in art school.
Yeah.
Are you a tough teacher, or are you a nice teacher?
Uh,
What do those
I'm probably too.
semester reviews say about you?
I think they say that I'm honest. Amy, if she's still on, she could probably answer. They probably say that I'm pretty blunt, like I'm honest. I feel like that's a Portuguese thing that's never gone away, where you just sort of tell people what's on your mind, and then sometimes people can be a little shocked by that. But I feel like I'm probably nice. It depends on the era. Like I've been teaching like off and on since 2005, and I
Yeah,
think early in my days I was probably very harsh, and I expected a lot because I was like coming from, I was, I had just was still working as a designer, or had just
yeah,
wrapped that up and was shifting into teaching full time. And I remember I actually taught for just a semester in Saudi Arabia, and I think my students were scared.
just
They were scared. I had the bar up really high, and I just like had that same like a high expectation that basically I just leveled up to how I thought it was gonna be for them in the real world. But I think I've sort of mellowed that down a little
yeah,
bit and have taken more the approach of the sandwich method with
yeah,
students.
yeah. For those that don't know, sandwich method is the one good thing, one like or a good comment about the work, a a thing to work on that maybe isn't so good, and then another good thing. And so it eases eases the student in and out of that harsh critique. I see Night Owl Art says she's honest but equally supportive and helpful. Always looking
Yay!
for her critiques. Uh, and then my wife says, I had a teacher freshman year who asked me why I was in art school, and I feel like I didn't think I should be. I switched out of that class immediately. Yeah, I think I'm always, I envision in my head that I'm a tougher teacher than I am. And
You?
yeah, I think, when I first started teaching, I had a lot more expectations of like, they need to be professionals right now.
Yeah.
And, and I don't know if that's the right mindset of like, they're still students, they're still learning, and I can't hold them to the same expectation of someone who's been in the industry for 5 years or 10 years or what have you. Um, and I think, I think I think I was harsher in my mind than I was in person. And hopefully that doesn't somehow look negative for the students, or they somehow like take advantage of that. Um, but I definitely think I have mellowed out, or at least my perception of what is important when students are learning, or when anybody's learning, to be honest, not just students, is very different than when I started out. I think when I started out, it was like, here's a technique, here's how you do it, and that's that. And now it's much more like exploratory and more philosophical in my approach as I teach.
I love that. I guess that's how in some ways, it sounds like me a bit, how I've mellowed out as well.
Yeah,
It,
and some of
it,
it's the type of students. I mean, the type of student you had when you started teaching, and when I started teaching in 2004, and so
mm,
the same
mm,
era essentially.
mm.
It's a different student, honestly. It's the expectations are a little bit different. The of what I want from them and what they want from me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's tough because you want to make sure that people are getting pushed, but you don't want to be like too like crazy. Because I also think about how clients are with me and what my favorite clients are, and definitely people who seem to give you constructive
Yeah,
feedback, and
they're
and
supportive.
are encouraging, and are fun to work with. Yeah. So definitely try to match that up to the people that I've really enjoyed working with, sort of act in that same way.
So are there clientele, like publishers, that you would like to work with at this point? Are there people that you're like, this is the book company I want to work with, they're doing the thing that I should be doing?
Yes,
Okay.
for sure. There always is. And I want to hear the same from you. I'm curious.
Oh, you don't, oh, okay. So you will say, I was going to say, are you trying to make me answer first before you answer?
I'll
Okay.
answer.
Okay, good.
I love, I sort of love like wacky children's books, like the really out there ones that maybe, I love anything that Enchanted Lion is doing.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. I can see
and
it.
all the illustrators they get on there. I haven't worked with them. Chronicle Books, uh, Tundra. I love some of the books they also come up with, and I've done a fair amount of work with HarperCollins, and I like working with them a lot. Like there's a couple imprints, Blazer and what are they called? Blazer and don't remember the other name, but they would be fun to work with. But I like working with HarperCollins a lot.
The I could see all of the, like, I'm a Chronicle. No, not Chronicle. What am I? Wait, yeah, no. What am I thinking of? Starts with a C. Is it Chronicle? And that just sounds weird now.
Maybe that's the only one I can think of with the C,
Yeah,
Chronicle
yeah.
Books, but there probably
Got
is
they got the
others.
logo with the glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Chronicle. Okay. Uh, shoot. What are the other ones? Like you said, Enchanted Lion, um, Flying Eye Press.
Yes.
Candlewick.
Flying Eye Books. Yes.
Candlewick's a good one. I mean, obviously, like the big ones. If like, hey, you know what? If Simon Schuster come knocking on my door saying, "Hey, we have a book for you," I'm not going to go no of any sort. But that idea of there are certain companies where I'm like, oh, I just dig what they do. I just the stuff they put out, like Flying Eye Press, everything they do with their little cloth, their cloth bind and everything just feels so like warm and inviting. And
Yeah.
my work doesn't make sense for it, honestly, because most of my work is stupid and dumb. No, I say that with high esteem for what I'm talking about. I say stupid and dumb is a-okay. I don't know as I would ever make work that's going to be anything other than that, because that's just my personality. But there are those ones where I'm like, oh, they're just beautiful books. Like, who even cares? Like, even what's in them, they're just like put together in such a way that they're just like gorgeous production of sorts. That's an interesting color. Okay, I might do that. So I'm talking to myself here about some colors and color choices I'm going to put into this. With what about, are there any authors or people like that you're like, oh, these are people I would like to work with?
Well, I mean, the only one that comes to mind, he's probably way out of my league, is the one that does all the books with John Klassen and Christian Robinson. What's his name? Look, I don't even know his name. He's never going to want to work with me.
Mac Barnett?
Yes.
Yeah. That he's not too shabby of an author. He's been known to write a few good things.
But yeah, I think his stuff is just really funny, and it's just witty. I just love that kind of witty. There's like lightheartedness about it.
Yeah. No, his stuff is amazing. Like we have so many of his books around this house because we love him and his partner in crime, Sean Harris.
Yeah.
Who are
Yeah, Sean Harris. Sean Harris is awesome.
Yeah,
and,
they're both pretty amazing, and like they know how to like work really well together to tell fun stories for kids. That not everybody's good at that. Not everybody's an expert in that sort of how to craft a really silly story. Let's see if
there's a Portuguese publisher that I really like, and every time I go home, or if my family wants to send me a package, I always ask for books from them. They're called Planeta Tangerina, and their books are like so wacky and fun. And I just they're unique because they're kind of like a group of artists and authors that started a publisher together.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I love anything they do.
Is there like a type, like, we talked about the type of stories that, potentially writing and things of the sort. Is there a type of content that you would be more excited to work on over others, in the sense of like, how do I put this, like, uh would you like to do biographies, or would you like to do more sort of like non-linear structures? Or, I mean, you mentioned the idea of sort of the sillier side on things. Is that sort of the goal, is to play in that sort of silly world?
I I I feel like oh, my cat's in the house. Uh-oh. I hope he doesn't, sorry to interrupt. I hope he doesn't try to jump up here. He might. He's huge. He'll probably take over the whole desk. We'll see. But I'm really open. I feel like, because I just got started on this journey as a children's book illustrator. Like, at the beginning, I was just so excited about anything and everything that came my way. Maybe I should be pickier, but I just fell in love with the manuscripts that would get sent to me. I don't know if it's because I was just like so thirsty to also illustrate them, but I think I love definitely the heartfelt stories. But then the things I come up with myself, they seem less narrative and and non-linear. Um, like the book ideas that I come up with, and they do seem more lighthearted, but the kinds of things I've been doing, like Saturday at the Food Pantry, that's like about food insecurity, and then Two Wheels is about a little boy who's learning how to ride a bike. um so I feel like at this point, I don't know yet if I have like if I would frown my nose up at a lot of different
Yeah.
up at things too much, but what I seem to come up with sure seems to be more out there
Yeah.
than like a character that follows like a traditional narrative per se. I seem to come up with more concept book ideas, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The ones that I've thought up.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's the direction I'm aiming towards too, with my,
Hmm.
like, narratives are fine, and I'm okay with narrative. In fact, I've spent a lot of years doing narrative, but I think that structurally my brain wraps better around something that has a little bit more of a irregular structure to it. And, that still can be a narrative, but it just seems to be easier for me to say, oh, I want to work on something that is, uh, like you said, a concept book of some sort. And maybe it means I need to jump into like board books at some point, because
Mm-hmm.
oh, so concept specific. But we will see. We will get there eventually. Um,
Yeah.
the I'm watching. How long do you normally, with a piece like this that you're working on? I'm watching this Roadrunner come about, and all the textures and things come into play. How long do you generally work on the any traditional side before you jump into any digital touches?
Um, hmm. Like on when I'm working on a book, for
Yeah.
example. Um, well, it's weird because when I do like half the piece traditionally, half uh half digitally, it's probably like one day doing it all traditionally, getting all the making the textures, because I'll spend a lot of time like making the patterns and things like that. And then the next day I'll probably like scan it, then do all the finishing touches. Um but if I'm working in like the full on traditional way, what I'll do is I'll bring a lot of the textures in as clipping masks, and I'll
Okay.
apply them to various parts of like characters or backgrounds or whatever it may be, if that makes sense. But usually I feel like it's about that 2 day thing. If it's like just something in my sketchbook, like I'll probably do it in just like a couple hours. Like I'll bring my when we go out climbing sometimes, and if we're just like climbing up boulders where you don't need like anyone to like hold the rope and make sure you're safe.
Yeah.
I'll bring my my sketchbook, and I'll just work on a piece right there and then, and that will probably take me like an hour or two or something like that. I'll bring all the paper collage bits with me and I'll work on them outside, which I really like. Sometimes too, when I was like on a deadline, and if a lot of times we'll take these climbing vacations where we'll leave with our Sprinter van. We built out a Sprinter van during the pandemic, just a side note. And we'll want to go somewhere, just get away from here and go somewhere. I'll bring the iPad and I'll work on the iPad while I'm on the road. And that is like one of the advantages of that for folks who are like wanting to do some kind of more nomadic sort of lifestyle. Then working on an iPad does have its advantages.
Yeah. I love the idea of you like working in your sketchbook and there's just bodies of people who have fallen off the rock face behind you because just littered with bones of people. What is it about climbing that's so exciting?
It's kind of, I feel like it's sort of similar to art. First of all, it takes up a lot of time and dedication to like get good at it. Like you gotta like, it's like a muscle. You gotta keep training to be good in it. It's like very focused too. When you get into a flow state, you can just lose yourself in it, where you don't even think about time, and it can be you can feel very like present. I like the movement of it. Just like, and also like I like coming above my fears, or like doing things that I didn't think that I could ever do, and then I'm like, holy cow, I got up that thing. That's awesome. I think that's always exciting.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely share some similarities, but I think too that it takes you to like beautiful, wild places. It gets you outside. I mean, you can climb in the gym too. There's plenty of folks to do that as well. But I just um, it kind of the community around it is really cool, like the way that people sort of root for you um, to get up climbs. And there's just more than just the climbing. There's like gathering around the campfire and camping and all of that I absolutely love about it. I think I always had this little bit of a thing where I spent a lot of time outdoors as a kid, and um, our dad would take us out to, he'd like go hunting or something, and we would go along with him. He'd be out shooting birds, and we'd just be out there just running around. I think there's like a big draw for me with and then once I came out here to the West in the 90s, and um I kind of got exposed to some of the national parks and some of the scenario. I just kind of really took to it naturally. It just felt like a place that I was very comfortable in right away.
And how gross and crusted over are your hands? Are they blistered? Are they?
Right now they're not too bad. So I had to take a break from climbing because my fingers were hurting me. So I was like, all right, I should probably back off.
Yeah.
But they definitely, I do get like the calluses. And if I'm out on the climbing trip and I'm climbing on rock, yeah, like your hands will get really like sore and cuffed up, and you use like nail filing, and you'll be like filing your skin so you don't get, so stuff doesn't split. It can get pretty nasty. And you should look at my husband. He's probably got like way grosser hand. Right now my hands are very like uh pixel pusher friendly. I don't have too many, but yeah.
Well, it's
But
like,
no, I like it when I have all the wounds and all of that. I'm like, my hands look great.
it's watching Free Solo. I assume you've seen that movie.
Yes.
Yeah, and like watching him like essentially get his hands back into shape, and like you said, like literally like filing down the skin, and like that's not something I want to do. Doesn't appeal to me.
You say that now.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do say that now. But it's not changing. You can't convince me. I used
Come
to
out
love.
to visit. Take you rock climbing.
I used to love like rock climbing when I was little. In our like elementary school, they took us on a trip that was like an overnight stay to this place where we got to do rock climbing, and like I used to love it, but I just don't think I have the. I don't think I have the skill nor the ability like I once did as a little kid. Now, I will state though, I did win the rope climbing competition
Wow.
at elementary school, and got to go to the district championship. And now I look back at it, I'm like, that rope was probably like 2 feet off the ground. Not.
But sounds like you are a natural. If you took to it, you'd probably make progress quickly.
I might with rock climbing, but I also know my limit. Let's put it that way. I know that that's maybe not meant for me in the long run. Where's my eraser? There's my eraser. Do you speaking of the hand wear and tear that happens with that, how much or how worried are you about and I don't mean worried in the sense of like I want you to really freak out about this now, but like we are in an industry where our hands are important. The way we use our hands and our ability to essentially there are money makers of sorts. Does the rock climbing thing ever get in the way of you being able to make work? Like, have you ever had to slow down on the hold off on a job or anything because of you just literally your hands and your arms are beat afterwards?
No, not too much. Just even now with it's my right hand that I have just like arthritis,
Yeah.
which is on like one finger. And I think that just also comes with like the age that I'm pushing. But no,
Like,
not too
what
much.
is that?
I don't worry too much about it.
You're talking 80. You're in your 80s or like 90s. Is that right?
No, but I'm already starting to get arthritic fingers, which that sucks.
Yeah. I imagine that like I have aches and pains that are like back issues and whatnot, like classic illustrator aches and pains. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Are you have you seen like doctors and appointments to actually deal with that kind of stuff? Are you at that point, or is it sort of just like, no, it just sort of hurts?
No, I did. I was doing like a PT program to rehab the hand, which is why I backed off from climbing. But what I was gonna say, it doesn't seem to really inhibit anything to do with the illustration, and I haven't really worried too much about it. It's funny that you mentioned this because my sister's partner, he's a musician, and we were in Portugal, and we wanted them to come out and watch us climb, but they had to cross this rock field of like little boulders, but they were like, the boulders were big and stable, but he didn't want to come for that same reason because he was worried about hurting it, like falling and hurting his fingers. No, I don't really worry about that too much because
Please tell me you called him a wimp and stuff, right?
no, he wanted to watch soccer or something. We're like, all right, fine. He's going to be watching like the soccer match. It's fine. But I think it was also because of that. We're like, we'll forgive him. He can't help himself. But I think like the worst that it could, I can't unless I like my fingers fell. Like I can't imagine them being so bad that I couldn't draw. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm probably imagining the worst of like, yeah, your finger fell off kind of situation. In reality, it's a much easier and like more simple thing than that.
The worst that could happen is me like break an ankle. That's like the most common climbing accidents is like falling off a boulder and like breaking an ankle, but I could still use my hands. I just wouldn't be able to walk anywhere. That happened very well.
You're not worried in the same way that I am. I just know that these babies right here bring in me millions of dollars on a daily basis. And yeah, no, I get it. I don't even know what kind of penguin this is, but I know there's ones that have big eyebrows.
Oh, I to see him. I didn't get a chance to see him yet.
So he's getting it
Oh.
now. He's a weird little penguin. I have to figure out exactly what I'm doing with him and how I'm going to put noses on these guys, and he's going to be out of place compared to them. I know you did say that you had to leave at 10.
Yes, that's what I just saw the time. I'm like, oh dear, I do need to dash off.
I don't want you to leave, but you're more than welcome to leave, and I won't hold it against you.
I know. This is so fun. I want to do this like more often now. Well, not necessarily to be your guest, but just make art together.
This is again, this is like, I hope that honestly that people that do this with me have the opportunity to do this again, whether it be with me or with other folks, of just being able to sit down and like make work and talk.
Yeah.
Because I do.
This is really fun.
Yeah, I do think it's a very rewarding process and experience in a way for not just me, but also for the listeners and whatnot, that it doesn't always have to be in front of people, admittedly, but I do think that is fun to have people ask you questions that you weren't really expecting in the first place. Well, let me do this, because I know that your time is limited. At the end of the day, I'm going to post this with probably in just a single session, is my guess, based on where I am on the work tonight. But I will tag you in it, so you can, or I'll make you a collaborator if you want.
Yeah.
And you can post it on your site, and people can listen. You can point them there and whatnot. And then if you end up posting your work at some point from tonight of any sort on Instagram, give me a little tag on it so I can see it.
I will. I plan to. Yes, I'm definitely planning on it. Look, I even made a kind of a square format so that I could.
Yeah. Honestly, when I do these, a lot of times I'm thinking about that as well. I'm like, okay, how can I format this in a way that's not going to be out of proportion for Instagram or any of those sites? So no, this has been a pleasure to chat with you tonight and have a lovely conversation that's didn't go too far awry compared to some nights. I think last week we got a little wild right off the bat, and it got silly. But I really do appreciate you taking the time to chat with me, and for us to be able to have the time to get to know each other in a way that we wouldn't otherwise, because I'm not out in Boulder, Colorado.
No, this is so fun, and it seems like we're from the same era too, which makes it, or similar eras, which makes it really great.
Yeah,
I feel like I don't get to meet a lot of people from that same.
We're both young and vibrant, and have not been through harsh times at all.
Nothing in my body hurts.
Yes, yeah. I don't even know what arthritis is. What is that?
Yeah, what is that?
I'm definitely
just ignore it. Whatever you feel, just ignore it.
Yeah. I'm definitely not thinking about retirement already, because I'm so young and vibrant. So, anyways, it has been a pleasure, and I look forward to us chatting again.
Me too. Thank you so much for this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored, because I have great respect for your work and you. So this has been amazing.
I don't know how to take that, but thank you.
No, thank
I know,
you
I know
so
I have
much.
to say that because that's the proper thing to say, but yeah, yeah.
It's not the proper thing to say. I mean it. I don't, to ask my student. I don't say stuff unless I mean it.
All right, I will. Night Owl Art, tell me the truth.
Yeah. Ask Night Owl Art. She'll tell you.
Yeah, give me the dirt. This Brizida a liar, and
He's not a liar.
Yeah, just rubbing my face in it and making me look like a fool tonight, or not. Oh, they say it's true. Yeah, good cover. Good cover.
See, we practiced her and I before we got on here. No, I'm just kidding.
I wonder how much you're being paid, Night Owl Art, to make Brizida look cool tonight. I need someone to come on and say I was a good teacher.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to catch up with her. This is too fun.
Anyways, I
Thank you
don't mean to
so
keep you.
much.
Go get some rest,
Have
and
a
I will be in touch.
boa noite. Do you know this word, boa noite?
No.
Good night. Good
Oh,
night.
like buena noche, like the
Yes.
Spanish is very similar.
Yes.
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 Yeah. Well,
Good night.
good night. All right, folks. I don't know if Brizida's got. There we go. Now that I can watch my feed, it shows up here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep working. I'm gonna get this guy going. I have it sitting up there, but I'm making. I want to see what happens if I put a night sky in of some sort of like interesting sort of punch of color up in that sky that could be hitting at the idea of like what do I want to say like that everlasting night of sorts. And so I'm trying to hit the right color that's there. And so I put down this ground of a red, and I'm sort of building color now to see what I can get out of it. But I'm going to be working here for a while, and you're more than welcome to hang out with me and throw questions in the comments, and I will try to answer questions for people. So if anybody has any fun questions, and the questions can be about anything and everything. You want to find out who I think is going to make it on Love is Blind? I'll tell you. I mean, definitely not. Well, I don't want to give spoilers away unless people are like, if they're in it and they're like, I already know what's going on. But there's one couple I think will make it, and then there's another couple that I already know isn't going to make it because they broke up. Oh, now we're talking dirt. But throw stuff in the comments, and I will answer, and I will talk about anything and everything. You want to find out what beef pizzle is? I will tell you. You want to all that good stuff. You know about a couple who broke up? Yeah, Lauren, you know they broke up on the last episode we watched. Yeah, don't forget. Yeah, not one that you don't know about, one that you do know about if you paid attention and weren't on your phone the whole time. Oh, that's what happened to them. Boom. Oh yeah, sad. It's not sad. It's entertaining. Get to watch a train wreck in front of your eyes. Okay, I gotta let this night sky dry. Ooh, night sky. Ooh, doesn't that look cool? No wait, I can't. Lilac, not Lila Seed Dudes. It's gotta be Lilac Dude. How long are your weekly lives? It's super cool to draw while watching. I do these every Thursday night. Generally every Thursday night. During the school year when I'm teaching, it's always at night. So it starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. I do one every Thursday, unless some major hiccup comes up, but I've been doing it for about 2.5 years now. Is that right? No, 2 years? I think we're coming up on 2 years, somewhere in there. So we're pushing up on probably 100 of these that I've done. And they generally run for about 4 hours. That's what Instagram allows before I have to start a new live feed. It only allows a 4-hour live feed. And then I post them immediately afterwards. And so tonight when I'm done here, by midnight at least, this will be posted up on Instagram for people to watch. And then I also have started posting them on YouTube as well for people to go back and watch them. I normally stay on for 4 hours. The guests stay on for anywhere between an hour to 4 hours, or the last week's one that we had, the guest stayed on for 4 hours and 15 minutes, which is probably the longest that someone stayed on because they had to listen to my nonsense for that entire time. But we had a crazy time last time. We got wild in that one all together. Who was it last week, Lauren? I'm drawing a blank. Oh yeah, Jennifer M. Potter. That's right. That's right. I was thinking the week the name from the week before was throwing me. I've done enough of these that there's been so many names and so many wonderful people that again, you can go back to my Instagram feed and see all of them and sort of get a sense of different artists that we've had on. They've all been primarily kidlit. There's been a couple that at the beginning that were maybe kidlit and or somewhat kidlit adjacent, something of the sort. But for the most part, they've all been kidlit folks. It's all people that we love. And like next week, we have on Leo Espinosa, whose work is stupid amazing. And a lot of these folks I don't even know. We just sort of converse with them and say, "Hey, you want to be on?" And they this is the wonder of the kidlit world, where they all go, "Yeah," and I go, "Cool," and like I get very excited, and then I have them on, and then we go, "Hey, let's talk shop," or here's something funny to start with, and then we just start talking about nonsense, and you know, whether we think hot dogs or sandwiches, those kind of questions. Um, so I don't know. Ask me questions in the comments though. Throw them out there. Let me see. What do you want to know? What can I relay to you about how this big old world that we live in works? Is there something you're dying to know about Kidlit that I can try to answer? Is there something that you're dying to know about how to make art or life or business questions? How do you become an illustrator? Oh, that's a good question. Luck? No, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what's a question that I always get. What's a question that I always hear? Oh, I know. How are you so handsome? So that question I've answered so many times in my life, and it's just nonstop. Everybody's saying that all the time to me, and I have to tell them that it's you know, I would generally say through hard work, but in reality, it's just me, you know, natural. It's just natural beauty. Alicia Nash, go for it. Ask me questions. Alicia, I think if I remember correctly, you also did a draws in your style that I remember being very, very nice. So thank you for participating in that. But ask me a question. Anything is fair game. And I won't shy away from any question, even if it's one of those topical questions that like could get me in trouble. Like, who are you voting for? Not that would get me in trouble. Well, I'm probably voting for the right side. Let's put it that way. But more so like something that is a hot button topic in the world today. I'll answer those. I don't care. I will. I have no problem doing that. Yeah, Alicia Nash. Yeah, you have the same question. Everybody's got the same question. Like the good looks, where they come from? Well, not from my parents, because they're trolls, just absolute trolls. No, okay. So the question is, how do you develop your spatial ability? Can you define what you mean by spatial ability to me? Because I don't know if that means like composition stuff. I don't know if that means like depth, because I feel like my work doesn't have a lot of depth to begin with. So I don't know if that's like, I don't know if I can answer that in a way that feels like it's the perfect solution, but I would love to know sort of what you mean by that. If we're talking composition, I'll start with composition. Hopefully that's what you're sort of getting at, and then if that's not the right thing, just throw it in that comment. Oh wait, okay. It could be the composition, but also think. I mean, how do you use space, especially between the bear and the relationship to the sewing machine? Oh, okay. So composition for me is not about like, so there's classic compositions. There's things like the Z composition. There's things like the X composition and the K composition and things that are like pretty standard ones that people have used throughout the years. My sense of composition has less to do with like trying to get the perfect alignment and more about balance and not symmetry, but balance. And so like if I'm going to put something that is dark or heavy in one area, I want to make sure that I do it somewhere else. So like the equivalent of originally it's going to be very, very light. And now I'm looking at it, I'm going like, okay, maybe I need to put something in that implies like some snowy mountains or some like glacial. I don't know if that's a word. Things of the sort in here. So it balances. So this isn't this lone dark spot on this piece. And I'm not sure exactly where I'm going with it. I'm trying to figure out like sort of, if I play with some of these shapes, is there one of these that sort of hints at a really nice sort of design, and like, you know, again, I don't want to feel like it's in little pockets either. So I feel like if I'm going to have that shape, I need to push it over there. A lot of that is just like trying to figure out, does it feel balanced? And what I mean by that is like, I don't want it to be perfect. That symmetry thing is important. So like, I don't want to have two bears on this side and two bears on that side and the penguin in the middle. I want to make sure that there's enough of a, things are slightly off balance, but balanced in a way wherein like there is a little bit of the pink showing up in all spots and the dark sort of shows up in two spots. I've always called it a bookmark color or a bookmark sort of value. So like if I'm going to put a bright pink somewhere on this piece, I want to make sure it shows up at least one other spot on the piece. Otherwise it's going to be too random and feel like it's disconnected from everything else, or it's going to potentially even draw too much attention, which is maybe the thing that I don't want in it. Yeah, see, I don't know about this. It is night sky may work, but it's difficult here, as I feel like it's a little clunky right now. Okay, so as far as like the space, when you say especially between the bear and the relationship to the sewing machine, the idea of like, again, balance, the idea of making sure that, like in the case of the sewing machine one, I don't have it sitting in front of me, I don't think any sort, but I'll draw on this board behind. Maybe this will help. Let me use this Sharpie because that's a little bit easier. So that bear piece, it's relatively square, somewhere in this range. In order to balance it out, for me, the balance comes from, I have a table, and that table comes off that left edge. And so it goes all the way to the edge here. And now in order to balance that, I could put something off the right edge here, but I didn't. I decided that I was going to have that sewing machine that came up. This is just a simple mock-up. And in order to balance the weight, so if I look at like that sort of weight line of the piece that runs down the center, right now there's quite a chunk that's on this side, that if I were to weigh this side would weigh more, obviously. So what I want to do is I want to put that bulk of that bear, and if I remember correctly, that bear is, you know, whatever, it's in here, something of this sort. I don't remember exactly how it's set up in there, but let's say it's something like this. What I want to do is make sure that, like, if I were to silhouette this whole section over here, ooh, this Sharpie's stinky. But if I were to go silhouette this, that the amount of space that I am silhouetting here on this side is about the same amount on the left side. And it doesn't mean that stuff has to be aligned in a way that it's, you know, perfect, but that weight should be relatively similar on both sides. And that's where like the asymmetry is going to be the fact that this goes off the edge. And I don't think there's anything else that went off the edge, but it's slightly off. But the, you know, that spatial relationship to the edge of the piece is really important. As I've heard other people say this, I'll draw on another little spot here. Hopefully this shows up on screen. But if I have a bunch of things that are the same size image, and I draw a little character that's in the center, that's going to have a very different feeling than if I have a character that's down here on the right, or if I have a character that's hanging in from the top edge. This one's going to feel, you know, basically centered because everything's about the same distance. This one, because I put it down in the right corner, is going to feel lonelier potentially. And so by literally secluding it into that corner can make it feel more lonely. This one here hanging off the top edge, there's a sense of danger. Even if I don't know what it is, there's a sense of danger, or a sense of even like spy, or like someone sneaking in and seeing something they shouldn't. I could almost play this one here against something where the character is down in this corner instead. This character has an escape because most pages go off to the right. So if I'm developing, you know, let's say it's a picture book and it's a spread, that character is walking off the right onto the next spread. If I leave the character over here in the corner and I have another spread that's over here or another page over here, that character's trapped, potentially. They have a lot longer to go to get off of that page off the right. And so there's a desperation or a loneliness that comes from that. If there's something that's literally blocking their way, let's say there's a big dragon that's on this, or a big, you know, beast or something that's over here on this right-hand page, this character literally has to get through that in order to get off to the right page. If I put a beast here, even if it's threatening, here's my beast, here's my crocodile. Urgh. It's got some teeth here, and it's threatening this character. He can he can easily escape off to the right because there's just nothing there blocking his way. And so by using those compositions and thinking about what's weighted one way or another, or the balance or the symmetry, all those things can tell a very different story. And so, like, even with me working on this right now, I'm sort of questioning, like, do I want, like, rather than the challenge that I have right now is I'm looking at this, I'm going, like, do I want to put a sky that runs all the way across, which is easy enough to do. I can go put something in here like this and it just feels like it's sky, and I'd put stars and things of the sort in here. But does that feel too evenly balanced? There is the advantage of right now, if I were to use it the way that it is, it's almost pointing down at the penguin. And so it becomes like a focal point, like, hey, everybody, look here. I'm bringing all your attention to the center of the penguin. I could also say, you know what? I want to throw it off balance because, or think about sort of the balance of the piece in the sense of this penguin is off to the right. Now, if I want to have some dark up here, maybe I just put that dark sky only in that left corner. And so it's really just up here, and I leave this white in that space. And so there's maybe a little bit more room and freedom over here. The other thing I could look at is also, like, what happens if I want to put type in? Could I put type there and let that really do some of the work for me? I'm not sure exactly how I want to play with this. I'm sort of leaning towards something like this, and then also coming back in and saying, okay, let me put a moon up there in that space. That would be sort of like, again, a remnant, not a remnant, a reminiscent, there we go, of the white space that's on this penguin here, that I just have this little hint of a moon that's sort of sitting up there in that space. And it's a question of, like, how far over do I want to put that? Do I put the moon over to the edge? Do I bring it in? Do I want to put it over here? Do I want it to actually be behind the hill that's here? So it's just sort of creeping over and sort of looking that direction. There's all sorts of ways to play with this. I think I'm leaning toward just the single piece, just because I kind of like that idea of, like, the negative space that's over there that could be used for type. And then eventually I got to do the noses, and then I'll do shadows, and I'll do other little, like, I was going to make a little suitcase that sits out here. So this penguin's been traveling, and maybe it'll have little stickers and stuff on it. But I don't know if that makes any sense or if that's helpful, but that was a lot. Let me go back. I know there was another thing here that said, this is from CAMANHNG_illustration. I've been trying to speed up my process, but I still am painting very slow. Do you have any advice on that, please? Should I simplify my art style, because now it is quite a lot of detail in watercolor? Okay, so here's the trick that I use. Especially when you're thinking about trying to speed up. There are ways to speed yourself up. I'm gonna draw this out for you, or I'm gonna sketch it out for you rather. And I'm not gonna use that Sharpie because that Sharpie was getting me lightheaded. And I don't want to do that, but let me find, I have a little graphite stick here. Okay, so there are four things you mess with. And there's a method that this will work into. So I'm going to show you two different things. One is you take a painting, whatever you're painting, and let's say it's a still life. And it's easy to start with a still life of some sort. And in order to get you to speed up, part of the challenge of speeding up is you need to get past the idea that it needs to be perfect. And so what I see is I see students sometimes in drawing classes where they're hesitant to get started, or I say, hey, you need to draw this model in front of you, and they take half an hour to draw a knee, and then I don't see the model because all I see is a knee in the end. And so what I ask people to do is, let's say I want you to draw a picture of an apple, or a painting of an apple, right? And I say you have 1 hour to get that done. Now, when you're done with it, I want you to repaint that apple. You can choose, you can move it around so it's not exactly the same, so it's just slightly different. But this time I want you to do 30 minutes. And then I want you to do another version of that apple. And I want you to do 15 minutes. And I want you to do another apple. And it needs to be done at that point. I want you to do, let's say, 8 minutes. And then 4 minutes. And then 2 minutes. And then 1 minute. And then 30 seconds. And then 10 seconds. And then maybe 1 second, right? So they don't need to be fancy of any sort. But the idea of you're reducing down that time. By the time that you get down to maybe like 2 minutes or even 1 minute, you might actually have that apple blocked in relatively quickly. And it will speed up your process, right? Automatically. It may not be perfectly detailed, but it's going to speed it up. And you get down to that 1 second thing, and maybe that's just literally a swatch of color that you put down. Once you're done with that 1 second thing, I want you to actually go back and do another 1 hour painting of that apple after that. So you're essentially going from 1 second all the way back to an hour. And more than likely, and this is just from experience that I've seen this, more than likely you will block this in 10 times faster than you did in that first initial pass of the 1 hour. My guess is probably in like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, you'll have that blocked in and ready to roll. And then the details, you'll have a lot more time to be able to play on them. You might even find in that process that there's a time frame in which you work better. Like for me, if I'm painting, I'm probably better at painting if I'm not spending too long and getting caught up in details. And in fact, there's probably like, that middle ground somewhere. It's like, oh, maybe in 8 minutes I can block that in relatively fast and feel happy with the textures that are there. The other way to mess with sort of the speed factor is to play around with the variables. And so there is the thing about time. I should put that in there correctly. Material, application, and scale. And so if I'm going to use that apple as an example again. If I have that little apple here, there's my apple, right? And let's say this piece is a 10-inch by 8-inch piece with an apple. Now what I want to do is I'm going to go down here and I'm going to make something that is 10 inches by 8 inches. And I'm going to use the same material. Let's say it's paint, and I used a paintbrush. Now what I'm going to say is I'm going to use half the time that I did there to paint this apple, right? That I'm going to have to make decisions there, just different choices by the fact that I'm literally limiting the time. Now I might come over here and say, instead of using, let's say, use watercolor. Instead of using watercolor on this one, now I want you to use something like colored pencil. Great. But it's still going to be an 8 by 10, and you're still going to use, so let's say this is an hour long. That's what we used here, 1 hour. This one's, let's say, 15 minutes. So this is the one we're messing with the time. This one we're messing with the material. One of them I might mess with, so it's the same time, it's the same scale, it's the same material, but the application. So instead of painting with a paintbrush, instead you have to use your fingers, right? And then the last one is to mess with scale. Instead of it being an 8 by 10, maybe this needs to be a 20 by 16, or maybe you go even bigger. Maybe it's got to be a 40 by 32, right? So it's huge. It's 4 times the size, and you will need to make decisions on this one because you're still keeping to the same time and the same material and the same application, but now you're staying with and you're messing with the scale on this one. Now that means you're going to have to make decisions to get that one done in time, which means you're probably going to have to think about bigger and broader brush strokes. You have to think about not putting in as many details, and you'll discover, again, something in that process that might make it a little bit faster for you to make those decisions, or you might find that you work better at a certain scale, or maybe there's a different application of material that is better for you, or a different material altogether that is better for you. All of that on this page is what's going to help speed you up and help you make decisions that you might not normally make, or get you away from potentially being reliant on a singular method to solve all of your equations. And done. And now I'm going to glue this down. Are there any other questions like that? I don't know if that was helpful. I hope it was. I do that with students all the time, especially when they're stuck in this world of like trying to figure out sort of like where to go with their work, or if they feel like they're in a rut of some sort because they've been doing the same thing over and over and over again. To get them just to break habits, essentially, of like, don't just do the same old thing for the rest of your life. Find ways to do interesting variations on the theme. And it doesn't have to be an apple. It could be whatever you want. But what I don't want it to be is something that's so complicated that you're not willing to take that leap of faith and try some weird time frames and some new materials and things of that sort. Get this all stuck down there. Trim this away. Okay. Are there other questions that people have that you can just, I mean, again, you just populate them in those comments and I will take a look and answer what I can. Where'd my moon go? I had a moon here. Where did Mr. Moon go? Toot, toot. Where did Mr. Moon go? Toot, toot. Where did Mr. Moon go? Well, that's frustrating. It must be around here somewhere. Is it behind this? It is. Oh, Mr. Moon, you can't sneak away from me. Mr. Moon's a bad moon. Bad moon. I don't like it when you do that, Mr. Moon. What other questions do people have? I hope I can answer other questions and that people don't sit back and go, I'm just going to watch. Participate, participate, have a good time. Participate, participate, have a good time. There's my moon. Let's see, I want to put that moon like, that's too perfectly in there. So again, I'm trying to figure out like, that's too perfectly in that space. If I go too close here, or if I put it right above, I don't want to put it right above that bear. So it's got to be like here, I think is the best location. Let's see. You seem to balance social and making art. Any advice there? What do you mean by social? Are you talking about like social media? Because I don't. Just leave it at that. I don't. I have a helper with that. I have someone who is actually my yuppers. Okay. There's a person upstairs who goes by the name my wife, and my wife is the real brains behind the operation. She's the one that keeps track of like, hey, here's what you should be posting today, and here's the content that makes sense for, here's the, did you know it's pancake day? Do we have any images of pancakes? And then I have to go, I don't know, probably not. And she goes, oh, there's one that you made last year and we should post that. She's the one that gets all that lovely information together. I'm the dummy who just kind of goes, yeah, cool. And so she's very, very helpful then. Yeah, you need a wife. Not any wife, my wife. But you can't have her, and tough. But she is wonderful and helps with plenty of that for me and makes my life easier in that sense. That being said, I mean, I'm not going to give her all the credit. Like some of it is me too. But she is very good at keeping track of that with the Gab and Doodle. She's the one that really helps arrange the schedule and things of the sort. And so I can sort of suggest people and things of the sort, and she'll help sort of manage that for me. And so she's very good at that side of it. She's also better at keeping a schedule than I am. So that, again, is very helpful long-term for me. Outside of that, like being social on these things, because, she may be the behind the scenes person, but I'm the one in front of the camera, right? And so part of that is being willing to make an idiot out of yourself, and being willing to converse and reach out to people, and what do I want to say? Like, have a good time and not get caught up in everything has to be perfect. So like making stuff like tonight, people always say like, oh, how do you talk and make, I am not caught up in like this thing has to be perfect. This is not about the artwork in a way. I mean, artwork's part of it. I get it, but really a lot of this is about having conversations with cool people, and the artwork is just the means in which to start that conversation, or to have something to do while we talk. And so I was a very, very shy person when I was in school. I mean, ridiculously shy when I was in school. And I think in a negative way, in the sense that, like, I think it hampered me from actually being or from me networking and finding people to hang out with and all sorts of things. And I mean, high school and college. I think I was maybe even more shy when I was in high school than when I was in college. But some of this is just, okay, I'm going to say this, and this is going to be a weird comment, and please bear with it, people, but I have a theory that everybody gets diarrhea. No, I don't have a theory. I know for a fact everybody does. At some point in your life, you're going to have it. Get ready, because it will change your life. The reason why I say that is no one is special. I used to say the Queen of England, but that's no more. So the King of England, you know what? Sometimes he gets it too. And Paul McCartney, oh yeah, guess what? He gets it too. And so do you, and so does everybody else. And in a way, it puts us on a level playing field. So no one is special. And so every time you think like, oh, I can't talk to that person, they somehow are somehow better than me, or they do something that I just never will be able to do. I want you to put in the back of your mind, you know what? They also get diarrhea. And that should help in a way at least get past that hurdle of you feeling like they are somehow better or more experienced, or that they don't want to talk to you or what have you. To me, that is a nice way to sort of find out that people are real and no one's special and things of that sort, and it makes it a whole lot easier to go up and just talk to people. So I know it's a weird way to put it, but I hold true to that statement. And I hope that no one gets it, but everybody does. All right, let's give this little guy a suitcase. A suitcase. What other questions do we have, folks? Come on, bring them on, bring them on, bring them on. I dare you. You might get an answer like I just said. But, hey. Better than no answer, maybe? When it comes to, okay, so Lilac Dudes, when it comes to querying as a picture book illustrator, do you have advice on how you can have your email stand out in the full inbox? Not really. I mean, okay, so here's the way that I was taught when I was younger, and I don't know if this is exactly the way you want to do it nowadays, but there was always this rule of thumb of you need to be in front of them on a regular basis. And so you can't just sit there and go, you know what, I sent them one thing and I hope they saw it and done. That you need to essentially like follow up. And following up can be you send another, sorry, hold on a second. I think what angle that's got to be cut. There we go. It can be that you send another email. It could be that you try to get in front of them in different manners. It could be that you literally like call them the next day and go, hey, did you get my email? Don't ever do that. But there are ways to essentially follow up. But I think the big thing is, rather than saying, hey, I sent you an email, or can I send you multiple emails, is try to get to them in other ways. And that means going to conferences and being in the same locations that they are. Again, it's rare that I have heard that someone reaches out to an agent and they just land that agent. Most of the stories that I've heard that have been, related to getting an agent have all been these like strange interactions. I was out at a restaurant, and sitting across from me was this agent that I was really interested in talking to at some point, and wasn't it wonderful that they were sitting there? Those kind of like conversations are always the ones that surprise me, because it seems to be like that's more common than the I wrote a query to their inbox. The other thing that would stand out if you were trying to get there is, obviously follow the rules. If they say only send in 2 images, send in 2 images. If they send in a dummy book, send in the dummy book, whatever that is. But I think one of the things that is going to be beneficial, and this is, we're speaking from sort of experience in the industry, but also speaking from the teacher side of me, is you need to look professional. And so you don't just send in some images, you design them so they look really lovely. So you do branding, and you put your name and info on every image, so it feels like it's this amazing package that they're getting. So it's not just like, here's a couple of images I happen to have sitting around and I threw them at you in an email. You want to find a way to like send them a really awesome PDF, or you want to find ways to share your love and documentation of your work in a way that really highlights your professionalism. And sometimes that can be done through, again, the simple form of just like, they ask for some images and you find some beautiful images and you put your name and stuff on it. Sometimes it may mean like you need to think about cool ways of presenting that information, whether it be like beautiful type on an image, whether it be something that sort of highlights your, what am I gonna say, like your distinct approach. So like the equivalent of, I don't want to ever send a postcard that feels formulaic, in the sense of like, I don't want here's my postcard or my email or anything. I'm using postcard because I still like the idea of postcards, but I don't want to send something where it's like, here's my postcard and it has all the images are, how do I put this, like I'm trying to think of a good way to describe this. I don't want it to feel like everybody else's postcard. So I want to find a way to package my postcard together. So if everybody out there is like, here's my little logo up in the corner and here's my image, right? I want to make sure that I do something where it's like the logo is embedded in the image, or the character is interacting with the logo. Or in my case, I have a way that I've sort of designed mine where now, if it's a vertical image, it has this little bar at the bottom that has all my information. And the bar of color that has my information in it is textured like I would with any of these sort of collage pieces. So it ties in with everything else. And the type that's on it is collaged. I actually went through the trouble of like making collage, cutting out all the letter forms and making something that felt specific to my style and my approach and all those kinds of things. And in turn, I think it made it a better package as a whole. And so like maintaining that brand or maintaining the way that you approach an art director is another way to set yourself apart. The challenge is they're going to get hit up with everybody's things, right? I've heard some art directors love emails only, and some art directors or agents, sorry, I keep saying art directors, but agents love physical copies of things like postcards and stuff like that. I think the big thing is just your images need to be the star. You don't want anything else to get in the way. If something else gets in the way, then you probably are doing it. And when I say like something else gets in the way, like some big gimmick gets in the way, like, ooh, I'm going to send my stuff and it's going to be printed on pencils. And I'm going to send them that and whatnot. And then they just remember, oh, someone sent some pencils. That's not as fun as, or as exciting to them as just a nice, beautiful image. And so again, cleanliness and branding is basically what it comes down to. I absolutely love that yellow on this piece. And I know it's one of those penguins, and I'm wondering, should I actually change that brow to this crazy yellow and then make the moon that crazy yellow? The question is, do I have another one of those yellows? Because it's a little bit of a harder yellow to try to come by. I know these. That's like dig through a bunch of scraps here. So hold on for a second. Let me see if I can find anything that's in that same punch as that. Is that the same? Maybe a little brighter, but I could maybe tone. Well, it's not too far off. I might be able to tone that down, but that's kind of fun. Do we like this yellow for the brow? Is that crazy? I mean, obviously not that shape and not that scale, but is that fun? Let's see what happens if I cut it down to size. I'd have to cover up that other one because the other one's glued down pretty heavily. Hey, Alex. And if I cover it up like so, is that crazy to have that little punch of yellow in there? Kind of dig it. And if you all don't dig it and you go, that's a dumb idea, Mark, I can understand and I can work with that, but kind of just dig that idea of that yellow brow. I'm trying to figure out if there's some other spot where I can put that yellow in. That would be, so it's not just that singular instance, because that may be too much if it's just that one instance. So where do I put it? Do I want to try to remove this moon? Do I want to cover up this moon with a yellow? Does that look like just a weird glow of yellow up in the sky? Help me out, people. Help me out. What do we think? Is that crazy to have that up there like that? I think I am going to put this down. I'm not sure exactly if it's going to make the most perfect sense or not, but I just kind of dig this weird random yellow showing up. So if anybody doesn't like it, tough luck. It's going in there. Now, let's see. Again, I can cover up that, and so I could actually do something that's like yellow over here. Like I come in and just go like this and just cover that up. There becomes a question of like, is there a spot where this yellow moon sits? That probably is better, honestly, like that. I might add a little bit of an earthier tone to this, or a little bit, something to make it feel a little bit more like that yellow that's there on the other piece. So let me get a brush here, and I'm gonna see if I can hit that color just barely. It's a little bit of like a slightly greenish, ever so slightly. Here, let's see. Maybe a touch more of this earthy tone. Okay. Let's wipe off some of this excess that I don't need there. That feels better. Okay, so let's cover up this little moon baby here. We don't need that little moon baby. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cover it up like this. Let's trim off a little extra here. Let's flip this over. Let's glue the back of this. Is my wife watching upstairs, or is she just zoned out? She's been very quiet all night. She doesn't have to watch. Maybe she fell asleep. I hope not, because then that means that I lose out on her taking notes. She's nice enough to take notes through all of this, which is a huge help. I go and paste down this over here so it's got two edges that are essentially not consistent with the rest of it. There we go. Glue. This guy glued back here. There we go. Okay. Now, let's stick down a beautiful yellow moon. What I'm going to do is try to hit it right in here. I might actually try to make it a little bit angled in there, actually. The reason for the angle is just so it doesn't feel like it's an affront. It sort of curves you down ever so slightly. Okay, now that I got that yellow in though, it means I can put that yellow and other little touches on things. So like, I can get a bit of that yellowy color. Let's see, one of these is a good one, like this. I come here and, you know, obviously I can add touches to that, but I can go put a little bit of yellow on the suitcase, and I'll detail that suitcase and whatnot, but like a little bit of yellow in these ears. Sure, why not? Maybe a little yellow there, a little yellow underneath the cheek there, yellow in that case. Sort of hinted that idea of where those are. Does anybody know that's watching? Does anybody know what color a nose on a polar bear is? I need that information. Let's see. Cameron illustration. How do you keep in mind the focus on the main character / action while making quick decisions like that? I mean, sometimes I get caught up painting the background and it becomes too much. Here, hold on one second. Lauren, if you are watching, would you please, oh, there we go. Someone says, oh, that's Bear Edward says, is black. Okay, that's all I need to know, because then I can just punch those in. The decision making thing, like knowing where I want the eye to focus. So I'm trying to, I mean, you can see everything sort of pointed at this guy for the most part. The only thing that's sort of counter to that is this angle. And the reason being is it's sort of, you know, most people enter from that top left, and then I have this thing that cuts across that sort of this angle that potentially blocks that blocks the viewer from getting in. And I could try to find ways to, like, you know, carry something over. Look at that. Stick down. Right, there we go. Carry something over that edge that helps sort of, like, again, gets me past that barrier. But I'm not overly concerned with that, because these two are strong enough that they're potentially sort of connecting each other in that situation. Let me put these little noses in so I can see what they sort of they look like in here. I'm thinking maybe I'll go full blown nose. Is that too phallic? I hope not. Don't judge me if it is. Not my intention. Let's put it that way. Bring this on up a little higher. Understand what's going on here. This marker not filling in 100%. There we go. That's a little better. But where was I? So that idea of sort of everything's focusing down on this this lovely little penguin here that's in here. I'm going to give him a little sort of pink little hint of where his like feathers are, things of this sort here. And I might actually go in here and put little pink lines on it. I need to figure out what color I want that to be. I mean, I could go put, what I will do is I will make a little suitcase handle there. So maybe, what color should I make that? I could go make that something that's like a little earthier tone like this. Or better yet, let's do this. Let's make this one, this handle pink this way. Extra breakfast. Hello, hello, hello. How are you? How are you? How are you? Ooh, there you go. You're welcome. That's an original by yours truly. Shoot, what was I gonna say? I don't remember what I was saying, but let me see if I can get this maybe a little bit smaller here. Ooh, this is so small, so tiny. There we go. So I'm surprised how little glue I've actually gone through tonight. I don't want to go through so much. But... all right, there we go. So let me press that down, get that stuck. There we go. Okay. Shoot, what was I saying? I don't remember what I was saying, but this idea of sort of like just again thinking about balance on the piece, where stuff goes. I don't know what that means. Okay, let's see. I want my white pencil. There we go. Here's the white pencil. And I want to come in here and I want to add some textures in here. Come back into these ears and add an extra strong punch there. Some on the cheeks. Let's get this in here. Kind of blurry. I hope that clears up. Oh yeah, it is kind of blurry. Well, I'm not too far off, honestly. I might be able to wrap this one up early tonight. Should be amazing. That never happens for me. What I need though is I need a black pencil. Wow. There we are. And I need my pencil sharpener, which is up here somewhere. Where's my pencil sharpener? There we go. Okay. Now I can look at like put in some little lines that make the feetsies. I might actually carry them across a little bit. So there's a little bit of a like intentionally imperfect elements to it. So let's keep that out for now. Mark, when did you shift from painting to collages? Probably about a year ago is my guess. That's a wild stab in the dark, though. I don't know if that's true or not as far as the time frame, but I think it's about a year ago. I have to go back and honestly check to see when it was, but it was because of a guest that I had on that I tried collage, and it sort of sparked my interest. But I think it was about a year ago, somewhere in that range. And so now I'm going through and I'm just doing fun little, like, some shadows on things. Even them out a little bit. And then let me give a little bit of dimensionality to them. Not a ton. But a little bit. I hope it's not as blurry anymore. Is it still blurry, Lauren? Okay. Again, I don't think there's that much longer that I gotta spend on this one because I want to keep this one relatively simple. What? It's blurry again? Okay. Well, we will wrap here soon anyway, so I just need to do the little touches on this guy. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make a little handle here. That's the suitcase. In fact, maybe I will. Do I have any other colors that would work with this? Not really. I could do like an off-white stripes on that. So it's like this. Just go. Let me shake that guy. I don't know why it's going off and on blurry for folks. Not the intention, obviously. Not trying to trick you, challenge you with some blur that goes on here. I'll let that dry, and I'll put some little like indication of stickers and stuff on that. Hint, hint, hint. Astrolabraxis, if you're watching, there's maybe a nod to something in that I'm doing. If you can figure it out, don't tell anyone. There's a secret little nod to something there. Let's see. What am I looking for color-wise? Is that the color I want? No. This is probably the best. So you said, wait, how about some fun travel stickers on the suitcase? That's what I was thinking. I was going to put some little, that's a question of how much detail I can get in there because it is small. Astralbrex says, Mark, when you make a mistake or a change you don't end up liking, do you collage over or fix it in post like in Photoshop? Well, there was a change I made up here that I collaged over, but there's things I might actually come back in and do in Photoshop just because, you know, like if it's a color correction or it's a thing that's not as easy to just cover up, then I will actually go back in and do that sort of Photoshop stuff. But I prefer not to do that purely because to me it's nice to have the finish be sort of 100% accurate to what was in the original as much as possible. So I'm trying to purchase some like things that hint at stickers. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get in there and get all the details into that, but just some little like nods to. And then I want that little white one here. Let's roll back. So it says, oh, the little faces on the guys. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. I want to get these little shadows being cast on the snow here. Where is that eraser? I want this. Let's take out some of these shadows because they're a little darker and more smudged than what I want. There we go. Get this out of there. Come back in with this pencil. And I want my white here. And that soften those. They're not so grainy. And then what I might do is take my white marker here. And then, question, one last little thing. Let's see if we can wrap on this. Let's see. Should I take this and do one of two things? Should I make it say something over here like oops or wrong turn or lost or something of that sort? So for those that are watching, you get to decide what should it say on that upper corner. Some sort of silly little blip of some sort. I don't want this big of a white element. So if you notice this one. Sorry. Where's the beef, which doesn't make any sense. No, that doesn't make any sense of any sort. Not at all. Let's see, what could I do? Is George here? Let's see. Checking silences. Bear left. South Pole. What is something funny that I know, Bear Edwards, we need you. Where's Bear Edwards? Is he on? Bear Edwards, are you on? Please come in from afar. Bear Edwards, we're calling you. He is on? Okay, Bear Edwards, you're up to bat. Here. Okay, what should it say on this piece? Bear left, right, penguin. Just a rip-off joke from the original Muppet movie. No rip-offs. So I was thinking of Bear Edwards. I was thinking about putting a little bit of text up here that said something that said like, are you lost? Or oops, or something of the sort. I'm trying to figure out what's the best joke to do in that space. You're so good at coming up with those little quick one-liners. Like it's funnier to me almost if it's like a single word versus a sentence of sorts. Thinking. What if it just said Gary? What? Just like the what? Like they're like my travel agent's gonna hear about this one. I'm basically stuck here until I can figure out what it's going to be, and then I boom, put it up there. Oh, yeah, but we don't have car warranties. See, that's good. That's long. That's good. Shoot, yeah. Because it's always that phone call you get, Lauren. I want to talk to you about your car warranty. Lauren didn't get it, Bear Edwards. She's a little, Yeah. Well, it's a question. Then he becomes a salesman. I'm just joking. It's okay, Lauren. I still love you. What'd you say? Should be now. Avon calling. Yeah. No, he looks like he's confused. Yes. When's the next bus? That could do. I've had a little thing that like just came up here and just said like bus stop. That could be kind of funny. Or not bus stop, it's just bus. I wonder what, do I have any colors that would work for that aren't too far off from everything else here? I just did, let's see. What I want is the same color as that piece there, but I think I cut too much of it. So. What? Do you think it should say bus stop? I just feel like most of the time it just says bus. I mean, maybe not, but I just, to me, that always. Okay, you're right. No, you're probably right. That's it. Probably should say bus stop. What is this? Circle? Let's see. I thought about the thing with the cities with a bunch of signs, but I think just a thing right here that just says, yeah, just bus or bus stop is probably enough. We can call it that. I just gotta let this dry and then get in there with some other colors and then cut it out and then put the little post that goes down and the post will just like run right up behind right there. Or maybe it'll be like, yeah, I think it's gotta go right behind there and go up. So I just gotta wait for this to dry. Anyways, ask me questions, folks. What you got? What do you want to hear about? What can I answer? I told my class today about beef pizzle. And I'm sure they thoroughly enjoyed hearing about it because it's such a wonderful thing. If you don't know what beef pizzle is, go look it up. Have a good time. Hop on Google. Say, hey, Google, what's beef pizzle? And let Google inform you. And boy will it. What is my favorite emoji? That is kind of a tough one. Let's see. What would my favorite emoji be? You know what it is? It's probably like some weird like flag of some country that no one knows. You know what I love? Oh, it's so good. There's this one that's just like a triangle. Oh, that's my favorite. I love that one that's just I'm trying to think of other ones that are like that dumb of a like. What is the dumbest one? Is there a taco one? Yeah. Taco. Or it's like a telephone or like, you know what I mean? Like it's got to be something that's like maybe not the most exciting thing in the world. That'd be my. Oh, a burrito is up there. Yeah, burrito's up there. Burrito or taco. I'll go with one of those. That feels about right. Let's see, if I want to put this here, I need to put it right about there. but I want to get it just a bit higher too. Here's what I need to do. I need to draw with a pencil. Where's my pencil? Where's my pencil? Do 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 do. So if I draw this and it goes up like this, where does it line up? Because then I can put that up right about there. That'll work. Okay. Let's stick this down. Do 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 do. Da 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 do. Astral Praxis, what is your favorite emoji? And it better be the one that's on your folder in class, otherwise you're a liar. Everybody's going to put these emojis and emoticons and things of this sort on their folders, and then we don't believe it. Oh, that's the worst. Emojis. What's your favorite emoji, everybody? If you had to be an emoji, what would your emoji be? Let's all pretend we're emojis. You know what my favorite emoji is? If I had to pick one emoji to live by. Emoji. I need the color to do the little thing. I don't know if I still have it now. That's problematic. I get rid of the swatch that worked for that. Maybe. Oh, see, that's too blue. That could work. That's awfully brown. Let's see. That one maybe work. Can I get away with that? Do I have any other scraps lying around from that collection of? Do 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 do. Who likes an emoji? Emojis. Kitty, don't make a mess up here, please. There's a kitty on my desk, and I don't want the kitty to be on my desk. Oh, kitty. You're the worst. Everybody hear that? That was the cat. Who do you think it was? Sure was Frankie. So we have two cats. One of them's cool and one of them's dumb. We got two dogs. One of them's cool and one of them's dumb. I got one wife, and she's cool and dumb. For like a wife or whatever, you know. Okay, let's see. Let's get this out of here. Let's go stick down. Let's go stick this down. Ready? Ba-na-na-dee. Ba-na-na-na-na. Ba-da-da-dee. Ba-na-na-na. Don't worry, I covered up that little bit. I know, I see it. It's going to get fixed. Watch this. This piece right here is going to get cut. It's going to get peeled up. And a little bit of it is going to go up above. So it looks like the top of the sign, like this. It's going to go right there. So a little bit right there, and then it's going to go. That's going to get cut off. And then this, I'm going to come down here like so. I'm going to go. Peel that section up. There you go. Let's see, now I can come in here like Add a bunch of white paint to that. Maybe even come in with that brush is not in good shape, so let's toss that guy. But I'm coming back in here with some real white paint. Just go da 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 da. Just even that out a little bit. Boom, boom. What if multiple fish sticks came out of the suitcase? Yeah, the problem is those would be so small they would just look like little brown things. I don't know if that's enough. I don't know if that's enough to merit it. I like the idea. I don't know if I can get away with that. This is one of those posts that has those little dots in it. There we go. There's that. I also need to draw a little bit of shadow underneath that too. Okay. Gotta wait for it to dry, and then I can write bus stop on there. Let's see. Corrugated. No. I don't know. I know what you're saying. They're like more structural, but I got you. I got you. Okay. Now, would it be crazy if I were to go in here and do this? I don't even know if I could do this. It could be absolutely nuts to do. To actually cut out the letter forms. Make it say. That nuts. That cuckoo bananas. That cuckoo bananas. Sorry, it's so small. Let me get this last little. I'd have to cut out the little holes in the U, or in the B rather. Corin, thank you very much, and thank you, Anita. That's very nice of you to say. Business practice has been lit. I hope that's been informative, and I hope that that I know it's a lot of information. I know it's sort of maybe a bit of an overload, but I hope that it has been helpful, or at least given some insight. And again, it's not always. Not everything I'm saying has to be the final answer on it all, that there's room for variation in it, but I just want people to be a little bit more prepared than what I was when I walked out the door. And since you heard the story about my show announcement today, you know that I was not the most prepared for anything, because I was crazy. I'm taking a while to do these. I don't even know if this is going to work. Make it say bus stop. Ooh, it's just going to take a while to do this. Center tapes will be available on Kata. Oh, nice. I could, yeah, I mean, I thought I could do it with like marker or something of the sort, just kind of, I mean, I guess maybe I'll do that. Maybe I won't even do it with marker. I will do it with this handy dandy tool, which is a Sharpie pen. We'll go put it in here that way. But I'll make it look like it's got that same sort of vibe, so I don't have to go and cut it out perfectly. Let's pick up some paint underneath. Okay, I like the little bit of irregularity. So it feels like it's cut. I do it that way. Okay, so I'm supposed to tell the people. My wife tells me, and she's right. I'm part of a little show called The Enormous Tiny Art that's at the Makata Gallery that's in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. They do it a couple times a year, and it is a show of small works. And I show it pretty much every year, like a couple times a year, generally. And the next show, all the work is starting to go up for sale on the 27th of February. And so I have a bunch of little tape pieces, tape meaning like audio cassettes. There we go. I couldn't think of it. And so those are going up soon. If people would like to go and take a look, you can go start to purchase those soon. They're relatively cheap because they were they're smallish. Let's put it that way. I don't know why that was so hard for me to state. Make this U. Come down a little bit more there. Okay. Let's go in there and just do some final little last looks. Can you request an axolotl? Coming from Astral Barcus, Anita. Maybe. I've done axolotls before and stuff, but I haven't done it with cut paper. And so I might be able to throw that in there. I'm not going to guarantee it, but I will take a look at it and see if it makes sense to throw into the mix. Sometimes with these, I don't even know where I'm going with it. Like tonight, I knew that I was doing a desert theme, and this is what it turned out to be. And it's not to say this isn't a desert. The Arctic is a desert, so it counts. But I didn't know it was going to be polar bears and a penguin at a bus stop. That's what it became. So let's see. I think that might be it. I'm going to go and see if there's like any other little textures to throw in any of these. To make them work a little better, get rid of some of these little crumbs that are on the piece. What was that pink that I had? There's that pink. Things a little rosy cheeks. They don't have mouths, but I think that's okay in this case. And I want da 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 da. I realize they should only have 3, huh? They should only have 3. They shouldn't have 4. That makes more sense. Okay. Where did I see? There was something I was going to touch. Oh, it's right there. Oh, here was sticking up. Okay. That's the piece for the night, folks. We're going to wrap it there, which is early for me, 11:46. Sometimes it goes way past this time frame, past my bedtime. So we're going to wrap it at that. So I'm going to clean up a little bit of things here, and I'll sort of make a little space that's nice. Let everybody see what the finished product is. And then we will call it quits. Quits. Pretty good for 3.5 hours, right? Something like that. Let's see. Okay. What I need to do, I need to put this away, I need to put this away, I need to put this away. These go here, and that goes there. And then what I'll do is, just for the sake of making it look nice and pretty, I'll put it up here on a nice clean board so you can see it in all of its spectacular colored glory. There's my brush, there's my brush. It's up here and all. Where's that blade? There's that, and then a little smudge right there. So get that up. I should have a little spots so I can clean them up before I go to Photoshop. Just to save myself the hassle. Looks pretty good. There we go. Done and done. I'll zoom in on it for people so they can see what the finished product looks like. I'll call it at that. Now I gotta go clean up. So let's get this nice and better here. So Danette Tazare, thank you for. Oh, that's like. Oh, never mind. That was ancient old thing. For some reason, it didn't fast forward on my phone here. So why is it crooked there? Let's get it non-crooked. There we go. Roughly like that. There we go. That's the piece for the night. I had a great time. Again, the guest on tonight was Brizida Magro, who is an amazing superstar and has a bunch of books coming out that you need to go look up. The book that I know and have loved for quite some time is around here somewhere. There it is. Fell down. Saturday at the Food Pantry. There you go. Boom. Oh, you can't even see it because of the glare. There you go. Saturday at the Food Pantry, written by Diane Neal and illustrated by Brizida Magro. Does amazing collage stuff and digital and all sorts of odds and ends. And so please go look up their work. But it's been a lovely Thursday night. I hope you all tune in next week. Next week we have Leo Espinosa on. And so we will have a fun time there as well. So other than that, you all have a lovely evening, and I'll see you next week. All right. Bye.